On Christmas Eve, a billionaire CEO stood at her penthouse window, watching families celebrate below, and realized she had no one to call. Lena Whitaker had everything money could buy, but when a single father counting quarters at a diner invited her into his broken, beautiful world, she discovered the one thing her fortune couldn't purchase: a family. This is the story of how the loneliest woman in the city found home in the most unexpected place. If you love stories about second chances and chosen family, stay until the end and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The penthouse was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence that settles over a home at night, bringing rest and comfort. This was the hollow, echoing silence of a mausoleum, expensive, immaculate, and utterly devoid of life. Lena Whitaker stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of her corner unit on the 43rd floor, her reflection ghostly against the glass. Beyond her pale image, the city of Seattle sprawled beneath a blanket of Christmas lights. Thousands of windows glowed warm and golden. She could see tiny figures moving inside apartments across the way, families gathering, children running, couples embracing. From this height, it all looked like a scene from a snow globe, perfect and untouchable. She pressed her palm against the cold glass, feeling nothing. Behind her, the penthouse stretched out in all its minimalist glory. 12,000 square feet of polished concrete floors, designer furniture in shades of gray and white, and art that cost more than most people earned in a year. Every surface gleamed, every object had its place. The Christmas tree, a 12-foot Fraser fir that a decorator had installed and adorned with platinum ornaments, stood in the corner like a museum piece. No presents beneath it, no mess of wrapping paper, no fingerprints on the glass baubles. Perfect. Controlled. Empty. Lena's phone buzzed on the marble countertop, the sound sharp in the quiet. She didn't move to check it. She already knew what it would be. Another automated message, a corporate holiday greeting, maybe an email from her assistant confirming that all the year-end bonuses had been distributed to her 347 employees. People who would go home tonight to messy living rooms and chaotic dinners and the beautiful disorder of being needed. She turned away from the window, her bare feet soundless on the heated floors. The apartment was climate-controlled to exactly 68 degrees. The lighting was programmed to shift throughout the day, mimicking natural sunlight even though she rarely opened the blackout shades. The refrigerator was stocked by a service that delivered organic, pre-portioned meals twice a week. Everything was efficient. Everything ran like clockwork. Everything except her. Lena caught sight of herself in the mirror above the console table. A woman of 38 who could pass for 30, with sharp cheekbones, dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, and gray eyes that had learned to reveal nothing in boardrooms full of men waiting for her to show weakness. She was wearing what she always wore at home, black cashmere loungewear that cost $800 and felt like wearing a cloud. Her face was bare of makeup. Without the armor of her power suits and carefully applied lipstick, she looked almost vulnerable. She hated it. The apartment's sound system was set to a classical playlist, something ambient and unobtrusive that her interior designer had recommended. Lena couldn't have named a single piece that was playing. She realized, with a jolt of something that might have been panic, that she couldn't remember the last time she'd listened to music she actually chose. Music she loved. Music that meant something. When had that happened? When had she stopped having preferences that weren't about optimization and efficiency? She walked through the living room, her hand trailing along the back of a sofa she'd sat on perhaps 3 times in the 2 years since she'd bought it. The kitchen was pristine, the stainless steel appliances gleaming. She opened the refrigerator and stared at the neat rows of containers, each labeled with calorie counts and macronutrient breakdowns. Her fingers hovered over a container of poached salmon and asparagus. She closed the door without taking anything. The truth was, she wasn't hungry. She was never hungry anymore, not for food, not for connection, not for anything that required her to feel something messy and uncontrollable. She'd spent so many years building walls around herself, brick by careful brick, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to want something she couldn't acquire through strategy and determination. Lena moved to her home office, a glass-walled sanctuary that overlooked the city. 3 monitors sat dark on her desk, waiting. Her laptop was closed. For once, there was no crisis demanding her attention, no deal that needed her personal touch, no emergency board meeting. Her company, Whitaker Technologies, had just closed its most profitable year on record. The acquisition of a major competitor had been finalized last week. The stock price was at an all-time high. She had won. By every metric that mattered in her world, she had won. So why did she feel like she was suffocating? Lena sank into her desk chair and opened the bottom drawer, pulling out a photograph she kept hidden beneath a stack of old business cards. The frame was simple, silver, and the photo inside was nearly 20 years old. A family of 4 stood in front of a modest house with peeling paint and a garden full of wildflowers. Her father, tall and bearded, had his arm around her mother, whose smile could light up a room. Lena's older brother, David, was making a ridiculous face at the camera. And there, at 13 years old, was Lena herself, gap-toothed, frizzy-haired, and genuinely happy. She didn't recognize that girl anymore. The accident had happened when she was 19, home from college for Thanksgiving. A drunk driver had run a red light. Her parents had died instantly. David had survived long enough to reach the hospital, long enough for Lena to hold his hand as he slipped away. 3 people she loved, gone in a matter of hours. The drunk driver had walked away with minor injuries and a suspended license. That was the night Lena Whitaker had learned the most important lesson of her life. Love was a liability. Connection was weakness. The only thing you could count on was yourself. She'd thrown herself into her studies with manic intensity, graduating at the top of her class, getting recruited by a major tech firm, working 100-hour weeks until she'd climbed high enough to start her own company. She'd been ruthless, brilliant, and utterly focused. Men who tried to date her learned quickly that she had no time for romance. Friends from college had stopped calling after she missed 1 too many weddings, 1 too many birthdays, 1 too many chances to show up. It was easier that way, safer. If you didn't let anyone in, they couldn't leave you. They couldn't die on you. They couldn't look at you with disappointment when you inevitably failed to be enough. Lena traced her finger over her mother's face in the photograph. Catherine Whitaker had been a teacher, had believed in community and kindness, and making time for people even when life got busy. She'd kept their small house filled with laughter and music and the smell of whatever she was baking. She'd known everyone's name in their neighborhood, had organized block parties and charity drives, had never met a stray soul she didn't try to help. "You'd be so disappointed in me," Lena whispered to the photograph. "Look at what I became." Her phone buzzed again. This time, curiosity made her check it. A notification from her building's management. Holiday services available, personal chef, event planning, companion services. The last one made her laugh, a sound bitter and sharp in the quiet. Companion services. You could literally rent a human being to keep you company on Christmas Eve. She'd considered it, briefly. How pathetic was that? Lena set the phone down and walked to the window again, drawn like a moth to the light of other people's lives. Down on the street, despite the late hour, she could see activity. A couple walked hand in hand, their breath visible in the cold air. A family loaded into a car, the trunk stuffed with wrapped presents. A group of friends stumbled out of a bar, laughing, their arms around each other's shoulders. She watched them until they disappeared from view, and then she watched the empty street, and then she couldn't stand it anymore. The walls of her perfect penthouse were closing in. The silence was screaming. If she spent 1 more minute in this temperature-controlled tomb, she was going to shatter into 1,000 expensive pieces that no amount of money could put back together. Lena moved quickly before she could talk herself out of it. She changed out of her loungewear into jeans, real jeans, not the designer kind, that she'd owned since before she'd made her first million. A simple sweater, her warmest coat, boots that were practical instead of fashionable. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and barely recognized this version. A woman who looked almost normal, almost approachable, almost human. She grabbed her keys and wallet and left the penthouse, the door closing behind her with a soft, final click. The elevator descended in smooth silence. Lena watched the numbers tick down, 42, 41, 40, and felt something like panic rising in her chest. What was she doing? Where was she going? It was nearly 11 o'clock on Christmas Eve. Everything would be closed. She had no plan, no destination, no purpose. But when the doors opened onto the lobby with its towering Christmas tree and elaborate decorations, she didn't turn back. She nodded at the night doorman, whose eyes widened slightly at seeing the elusive Ms. Whitaker actually leaving her apartment, and stepped out into the cold. The air hit her like a slap, sharp and real and shocking after the controlled environment of her home. Lena breathed it in, feeling it burn her lungs, and started walking with no direction in mind. The city was quieter than usual, but not empty. Holiday music drifted from a few bars that were still open. The smell of roasted chestnuts came from a street vendor packing up his cart. Christmas lights reflected in puddles from an earlier rain. Lena walked past the luxury shops where she sometimes bought things she didn't need, past the restaurants where she took clients but never friends, past the gym where she worked out at 5 a.m. to avoid human interaction. She walked until her neighborhood of glass towers and expensive facades gave way to older buildings, smaller shops, places that had been here long before the tech boom had transformed the city. And that's when she saw it. A diner. Not a trendy gastropub or a farm-to-table restaurant, but an actual, honest-to-goodness diner with a flickering neon sign that read, Stella's 24/7 Diner, in cheerful red letters. Through the windows she could see worn booths, a long counter with spinning stools, and the kind of lighting that was too bright and too honest. A few people sat scattered throughout. Late-night workers, insomniacs, people who had nowhere else to be on Christmas Eve. Lena's people, though they didn't know it. She pushed open the door, and warmth rushed out to meet her along with the smell of coffee and bacon grease and pie. A bell chimed overhead. A waitress with gray hair and kind eyes looked up from behind the counter and smiled. "Merry Christmas, honey," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world to greet a stranger with such warmth. "Sit anywhere you like." Lena chose a booth in the corner, sliding onto the cracked vinyl seat. The menu was laminated and sticky, offering the kind of food that came in generous portions and didn't care about being Instagram-worthy. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten at a place like this. College, maybe. Back when she'd been a different person living a different life. The waitress appeared with a pot of coffee. "What can I get you, sweetheart?" "Just coffee, please," Lena said, and was surprised at how rough her voice sounded. When was the last time she'd spoken out loud to another person? Yesterday? The day before? "You sure? We've got the best pie in Seattle, homemade. The banana cream is something special tonight." "Maybe later," Lena said, though she knew she wouldn't order it. She never ordered pie. Pie was unnecessary calories, empty carbs, indulgence without purpose. The waitress filled her cup with coffee that smelled like it had been sitting on the burner too long and wandered off to check on other customers. Lena wrapped her hands around the mug, grateful for its warmth, and let herself just exist. No one here knew who she was. No one recognized her from business magazines or tech conference keynotes. She was just another person seeking refuge from the cold and the holiday and whatever ghosts were chasing them. She sipped the terrible coffee and felt something in her chest loosen, just slightly. That's when the bell over the door chimed again, and Lena looked up to see a man walk in with a little girl. The man was probably in his mid-30s, with the kind of tired that went bone deep. He wore a jacket that had seen better years and jeans with frayed hems. His dark hair needed a cut, and there was stubble on his jaw that suggested shaving had been the least of his priorities lately. But it was his eyes that caught Lena's attention. Warm brown eyes that, despite the exhaustion, held a gentleness that seemed almost out of place in the harsh fluorescent lighting. The little girl clutching his hand was maybe 6 or 7, with wild curls escaping from beneath a knit cap, and eyes that sparkled with the kind of wonder that only children possess on Christmas Eve. She wore a coat that was slightly too small for her, the sleeves riding up to expose thin wrists, and snow boots decorated with cartoon characters. They slid into the booth directly across from Lena's, and she couldn't help but overhear their conversation. "Can we really get hot chocolate, Daddy?" the girl asked, bouncing slightly in her seat. "Of course, Lucy Goose," the man said, his voice warm despite the weariness. "It's Christmas Eve. Hot chocolate is mandatory." Lucy giggled, the sound pure and bright in the worn diner. "With marshmallows? Is there any other kind?" Lena watched them over the rim of her coffee cup, something sharp and painful lodging beneath her ribs. The easy affection between them, the way the man's whole face softened when he looked at his daughter, the way the girl trusted him completely. It was like watching something from another world, a language she'd once spoken but had long forgotten. The waitress approached their table. "Well, if it isn't my favorite customer. Merry Christmas, Lucy." "Merry Christmas, Miss Stella," Lucy chirped. The usual hot chocolate? Lucy nodded enthusiastically, then looked at her father. Can Daddy have one too? Oh, I'm fine, sweetheart, the man said quickly. I'll just have water. Lucy's face fell. But it's Christmas Eve. You should have hot chocolate too. I know, baby, but... He glanced at Miss Stella with an apologetic smile. Just water for me, please. You got it, Noah, the waitress said gently, understanding passing between them. After she left, Lucy leaned across the table. Daddy, aren't you hungry? We didn't have dinner. I ate at work, remember? Noah said, the lie smooth and practiced. I'm stuffed, but you need something warm in your belly. How about we split some fries? Okay. Lucy seemed satisfied with this, and Noah visibly relaxed. But Lena had seen what happened next. As Stella brought the hot chocolate, a generous mug topped with whipped cream and a candy cane, Noah reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small Ziploc bag. Not a wallet. A bag full of coins. He dumped the contents onto the table as quietly as he could, trying to shield the action from his daughter with his body. Quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies, a small pile of change that represented everything he had. Lena watched as he counted it carefully, his lips moving silently, sorting the coins into neat stacks. When Stella brought the fries and a glass of water, Noah counted out exact change, pushing it across the table. Lena saw him come up short, saw the moment of panic cross his face, saw Stella glance at the pile and then at him with infinite kindness. You know what, Noah? I think we overcharged you last time. This should be enough with what you've got on credit here, she said softly. Stella, I can't... Hush, it's Christmas. She squeezed his shoulder and walked away before he could protest further. Noah's jaw tightened and Lena saw him blink rapidly, staring down at his water glass. Lucy, oblivious to the exchange, was happily dunking fries into ketchup and chattering about the Christmas lights they'd seen on their walk. And there was a house with a giant snow globe, a real one you could walk into. And there were reindeer made of lights. Can we get lights like that someday, Daddy? Maybe someday, Lucy Goose, Noah said, his voice steady even though his hands weren't quite. When we have our own place again. I like Mrs. Chen's apartment, Lucy said loyally. She lets me help her make cookies. That's because you're the best cookie helper in the world. The bestest, Lucy agreed, taking a long drink of her hot chocolate and coming up with a whipped cream mustache that made her giggle. Lena should have looked away. This moment was private, intimate, none of her business. But she couldn't stop watching them, couldn't stop seeing the love that existed in that worn booth, in the shared plate of cheap fries, in the way Noah smiled at his daughter despite the weight of whatever burdens he carried. This man had nothing. The evidence was right there in his counted coins, in his too thin frame, in the coat that wasn't warm enough for a Seattle winter. But he had everything that Lena didn't, someone to take care of, someone who loved him unconditionally, someone who made his face light up with a joy that had nothing to do with profit margins or stock prices. Lena felt something crack inside her chest, right down the center. She thought about her penthouse with its 12-foot Christmas tree that no one would see. She thought about her refrigerator full of food portioned for one. She thought about the silence that would greet her when she returned, and the silence that would still be there tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day stretching out into a future that looked exactly like her past. She thought about her mother, who would have already invited this father and daughter home for Christmas dinner, who would have known their names and their stories, and would have made sure they left with full bellies and maybe a bag of leftovers, who believed that you took care of people, not because it was practical or because you'd get something in return, but because that's what it meant to be human. Before she could talk herself out of it, Lena stood and walked to the counter where Stella was refilling sugar dispensers. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "The man and the little girl in booth 4. I'd like to pay for their meal, and I'd like to order them whatever they want. Dinner, dessert, whatever they'd like. But please don't tell them it's from me." Stella studied her for a long moment, and Lena had the uncomfortable feeling of being seen, really seen, for the first time in years. "That's real kind of you, honey," Stella finally said. "But Noah's a proud man. He won't accept charity." "It's not charity," Lena said, surprising herself with the intensity in her voice. It's Christmas Eve. Please." Something in Stella's expression softened. "Tell you what, I'll say it's a Christmas special we're running. Free meal with every hot chocolate on Christmas Eve. He might believe that. Thank you, Lena whispered. She returned to her booth, her heart hammering in a way that had nothing to do with her cardio routine. She watched as Stella approached Noah's table with a menu and a story about the restaurant's holiday promotion. She watched Noah's face cycle through suspicion, disbelief, and then cautious hope. She watched Lucy's eyes go wide with excitement at the prospect of a real meal. Are you sure? Noah asked Stella, his voice thick with emotion. That's really too generous. House rules, Stella said firmly. Now what sounds good to you folks? Lucy ordered pancakes with chocolate chips. Noah, after much prodding from his daughter, agreed to a burger and fries of his own. When the food came, generous portions that made Lucy gasp with delight, Lena felt a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the terrible coffee. She watched them eat, watched Noah make airplane noises to get Lucy to take her vitamins that he pulled from his pocket, watched the girl tell an elaborate story about her stuffed bear that made her father laugh. A real laugh, the kind that came from the belly and transformed his whole face. In that moment, he looked years younger, less burdened, almost at peace. Lena finished her coffee, paid for her own cup, and left a $100 bill under her saucer. She stood to leave, pulling her coat tight against the cold that waited outside. But as she passed their booth, Lucy looked up, her eyes meeting Lena's. "Merry Christmas," the little girl said, her smile wide and gap-toothed and absolutely radiant. Lena froze. "Merry Christmas," she managed, her voice cracking slightly. "Are you spending Christmas alone?" Lucy asked with the blunt curiosity of children. "Lucy," Noah said quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, she doesn't mean—" "I am," Lena interrupted and realized she was going to cry. Right here in this diner, in front of these strangers, she was going to fall apart. "I'm spending it alone." Lucy frowned, clearly troubled by this information. She looked at her father, then back at Lena, then made a decision with the kind of certainty that only children possess. "You should come have Christmas with us," she announced. "Shouldn't she, Daddy?" Noah looked mortified. "Lucy, you can't just invite people." "Why not? It's Christmas. Nobody should be alone at Christmas." Lucy turned back to Lena with an earnestness that was devastating in its purity. "We don't have a lot of stuff, but we have cookies, and Mrs. Chen is going to let us watch Christmas movies, and we have a really small tree, but it has lights and everything. You should come. Please." Lena stood there, this powerful CEO who commanded rooms full of important people, and felt completely undone by a 6-year-old's invitation. Every instinct screamed at her to decline politely, to maintain her walls, to retreat to the safety of her isolation. But that crack in her chest was widening, and through it she could see a glimpse of something she'd thought was lost forever. The possibility of connection, of belonging, of being part of something bigger than herself. "I don't want to impose," she said weakly. "You wouldn't be," Noah said, and despite his clear embarrassment at his daughter's forwardness, there was kindness in his eyes. "If you really don't have anywhere to go, we'd be happy to have you. It won't be fancy, but—" "I don't need fancy," Lena said quickly. Too quickly. She took a breath, trying to steady herself. I don't even know your names." "I'm Lucy," the girl announced proudly. "And this is my daddy, Noah. What's your name?" "Lena." She didn't add her last name, didn't mention her company, didn't offer any of the credentials she usually led with. "Just Lena." "Just Lena," Lucy repeated, testing it out. "I like it. So you'll come? Tomorrow? We're at Mrs. Chen's apartment building. Daddy can write down the address." Lena looked at Noah, searching for any sign that this was a pity invitation, that he felt obligated by his daughter's kindness. But what she saw in his face was something else, recognition, maybe. The look of one lonely person seeing another and understanding. "If you're sure it's not too much trouble," Lena heard herself say. "It's not," Noah said simply. "Lucy's right. Nobody should be alone on Christmas." And just like that, standing in a worn-down diner at nearly midnight on Christmas Eve, Lena Whitaker's perfect, controlled, empty life tilted on its axis. She gave them her phone number. Noah wrote down the address on a napkin in handwriting that was careful and neat. They agreed on a time, late morning, after Lucy opened her presents. Lena promised she would be there, and the certainty in her own voice surprised her. As she walked back out into the cold, the bell chiming behind her, Lena looked up at the sky. No stars were visible through the city's light pollution, but somewhere beyond the clouds, they were there, constant and unchanging. She thought about her parents, about the family she'd lost, about the walls she'd built to protect a heart that was tired of breaking. She thought about a little girl with wild curls and a smile that could light up the world, and a father who counted quarters to buy his daughter hot chocolate. And for the first time in 19 years, Lena Whitaker walked through the city streets and didn't feel completely alone. The penthouse would still be empty when she returned. The silence would still be waiting. But tomorrow she would walk into a small apartment filled with light and laughter and the beautiful chaos of people who had nothing but gave everything. Tomorrow, she would take the first step toward learning how to be human again. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay in her king-sized bed with its 1,000 thread-count sheets, staring at the ceiling as the hours crawled past. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lucy's gap-toothed smile, heard the certainty in the child's voice when she'd declared that nobody should be alone at Christmas. The napkin with Noah's address sat on her nightstand, the ink slightly smudged from where his fingers had pressed too hard, as if he'd been nervous writing it. At 3 a.m, she got up and stood at her window again, watching the city sleep. Somewhere out there, in an apartment she'd never seen, a little girl was dreaming of Christmas morning, and her father was probably lying awake too, wondering what he'd been thinking, inviting a complete stranger into their life. What was Lena thinking, accepting? She knew how to navigate boardrooms, how to negotiate multi-million-dollar deals, how to fire executives without flinching. But walking into someone's home, being a guest, making small talk, pretending to be normal, these were skills she'd let atrophy. What if she said the wrong thing? What if Lucy realized she was boring or cold or broken? What if Noah regretted his daughter's kindness the moment Lena walked through the door? At 5 a.m., she gave up on sleep entirely and made herself coffee in the espresso machine that had cost more than most people's monthly rent. She stood in her kitchen, drinking it black, and tried to remember the last time she'd spent Christmas with other people. 8 years ago. 9. Before she'd stopped accepting invitations, before her assistant had started sending expensive gift baskets in her stead, before she'd perfected the art of being unavailable. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Lena showered, then stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes, paralyzed by indecision. Everything she owned was either too formal or too expensive or too obviously designer. Finally, she chose simple black pants and a cream-colored sweater that had been a gift from someone she couldn't remember. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a woman trying very hard to appear casual, to blend in, to be someone she wasn't. She almost called it off. She picked up her phone 3 times to text Noah and make an excuse. Work emergency. Feeling sick. Something came up. All the lies she'd perfected over the years. But each time she thought about Lucy's invitation, offered so freely, so generously. That child didn't know that Lena was wealthy or powerful or important. She'd just seen someone alone and decided that was unacceptable. There was something pure in that, something Lena's mother would have recognized and celebrated. So instead of canceling, she called her driver. "Ma'am?" James sounded surprised to hear from her. "I didn't think you'd need me today." "I need you to take me somewhere," Lena said, "and then I'll need you to pick me up later. I'm not sure what time yet." "Of course. Where are we going?" Lena gave him the address from the napkin, and there was a pause. That's quite a different neighborhood, Ms. Whitaker." "I'm aware." Another pause. "Is everything all right?" "I'm going to spend Christmas with some people I met," Lena said, and heard how strange it sounded out loud. "Some new friends." "That's wonderful, ma'am," James said, and he sounded like he meant it. "What time should I pick you up?" 10:30. She had an hour to kill, so she did something she hadn't done in years. She went shopping, not online, not through a personal shopper, but actual shopping in actual stores. Most places were closed for the holiday, but she found a boutique bakery that was open until noon and a toy store that catered to last-minute shoppers. In the bakery, she stood in line behind families picking up special orders, listening to the chatter around her. A woman argued cheerfully with her husband about whether they'd bought enough pie. A teenager complained about having to visit relatives. A little boy pressed his face against the glass case, trying to decide between cookies shaped like reindeer and cookies shaped like snowmen. When it was Lena's turn, she felt suddenly inadequate. I'm going to someone's home for Christmas. I need to bring something. What do people bring? The woman behind the counter, round and warm and covered in flour, smiled at her. Well, honey, what are they like? I don't know them very well, Lena admitted. There's a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, and her father. Is it just the two of them? Lena nodded. The woman's expression softened with understanding. Okay, let's set you up right. She packed a box with an assortment of cookies, threw in some chocolate croissants, added a small chocolate cake. Can't go wrong with chocolate, she said. Kids love it. Adults appreciate it. Lena paid, barely glancing at the total, and the woman handed her the box tied with a red ribbon. Merry Christmas, dear. I hope you have a wonderful time. Thank you, Lena said, and meant it. The toy store was harder. Lena wandered the aisles, overwhelmed by the choices. What did 6-year-old girls like? She had no idea. No nieces or nephews, no friends with children, no frame of reference at all. Everything seemed either too babyish or too old, too expensive or too cheap. Can I help you find something? Lena turned to see a young woman in a store uniform, her name tag reading Sophie. I need a gift for a little girl, Lena said. But I don't know what she likes, or what she already has, or what's appropriate. Sophie smiled. How old? 6 or 7, I think. And what's your budget? Lena almost laughed. Budget. When was the last time she'd had a budget for anything? That's not a concern. Sophie's eyebrows raised slightly, but she recovered quickly. Okay, well, let me show you some options. She led Lena through the store, pointing out popular items, explaining what was trendy, what was educational, what would last. Lena found herself actually listening, actually caring about the difference between one doll and another, one art set and the next. In the end, she chose a deluxe art kit filled with markers, colored pencils, paint, and paper. Every kid loves to create, Sophie had said, and something about that resonated. Then, because she couldn't help herself, Lena added a stuffed animal, a bear with soft brown fur and kind eyes that reminded her, oddly, of Noah. She'll love these, Sophie assured her as she wrapped them. How do you know? Lena asked, genuinely curious. Because someone thought about her enough to choose them. That's what matters. At exactly 10:30, Lena slid into the back of the town car with her boxes of pastries and carefully wrapped gifts. James caught her eye in the rearview mirror. You look nervous, if you don't mind me saying, ma'am. I am nervous, Lena admitted. Terrified, actually. May I offer some advice? Please? Just be yourself. That's all anyone really wants. Lena almost told him that herself was exactly the problem, that she'd spent so many years being a CEO, a boss, a success story that she wasn't sure who herself was anymore. But instead, she just nodded and watched the city change outside her window. They drove from her neighborhood of glass and steel into older parts of the city, where buildings had character and history and weren't trying to impress anyone. The streets grew narrower, the cars more modest, the Christmas decorations more homemade and enthusiastic. Every other house seemed to have lights strung up, inflatable snowmen on their lawns, wreaths on their doors. The address Noah had given her led to a modest apartment building, 3 stories of brown brick that had probably been built in the 70s. No doorman, no marble lobby, no security that needed to approve visitors. Just a simple front door with a broken lock and a list of names and buzzers. James pulled up to the curb and looked back at her. What time should I return, Ms. Whitaker? Lena realized she had no idea how long Christmas visits were supposed to last. An hour? 2? I'll text you, she said. Very good, ma'am. Enjoy yourself. She stood on the sidewalk, clutching her boxes, feeling more out of place than she had in years. A woman passed by with a toddler, both bundled in bright winter coats, and wished her a Merry Christmas. Lena managed to return the greeting, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. She found Noah's name next to apartment 2C, Brooks, and pressed the buzzer before she could lose her nerve. The speaker crackled. Hello? It was Lucy's voice, bright and excited. Hi, Lucy. It's Lena, from last night. She came! She came! Daddy, she came! There was a sound of fumbling, then Noah's voice. Sorry about that. Come on up, second floor. The buzzer sounded and Lena pushed through the door into a lobby that smelled like old carpet and cooking spices. The elevator had an out-of-order sign taped to it, so she climbed the stairs, her heart pounding harder than the 2 flights warranted. She found apartment 2C and knocked. Inside, she heard Lucy shouting, I'll get it! I'll get it! Followed by Noah's voice. Wait, let me check first. Lucy! The door flew open, and there was the little girl, now wearing a red velvet dress that was clearly special occasion wear, her wild curls contained by a matching headband. Her face lit up when she saw Lena. You really came. I really came, Lena confirmed, and felt something warm unfurl in her chest at the child's genuine delight. Noah appeared behind his daughter, looking apologetic and nervous. He'd cleaned up since last night, freshly shaved, hair combed, wearing a button-down shirt that was slightly wrinkled but clearly the nicest thing he owned. Please come in. I'm sorry about the chaos. Lena stepped inside, and the first thing that struck her was how small it was. Her closet was probably larger than this entire apartment. The living room, kitchen, and dining area were all one space, separated only by furniture placement. A worn couch faced a small TV. A table that seated 4 took up most of the kitchen area. Everything was old, mismatched, and clearly secondhand, but it was warm. It was lived in, and it was filled with Christmas. A small tree stood in the corner, barely 4 feet tall, decorated with what looked like homemade ornaments and strings of lights that blinked cheerfully. Paper snowflakes hung from the ceiling. A nativity scene made from construction paper and popsicle sticks sat on the windowsill. The smell of cookies and pine and something cooking filled the air. It was everything her penthouse wasn't. These are for you, Lena said, holding out the bakery box and the wrapped gifts. I wasn't sure what to bring. Lucy gasped. Presents? Are these for me? Lucy, manners, Noah said gently, but he was looking at the boxes with something like concern. Lena, you didn't have to. I wanted to, Lena interrupted. Please. Lucy was practically vibrating with excitement, and Noah relented. Okay, but let's let our guests get settled first. Can I take your coat? Lena shrugged out of her cashmere coat, and Noah hung it carefully on a hook by the door, next to his thin jacket and Lucy's too small one. She noticed his eyes taking in the quality of the fabric, the designer label, and something shifted in his expression, not resentment exactly, but an awareness of the gulf between them. Would you like some coffee? He asked, recovering his hospitality. It's not fancy, but it's hot. Coffee would be perfect. She sat on the couch at Lucy's insistence, the cushions sagging beneath her. The little girl plopped down beside her, so close their legs touched, with the comfort of a child who hadn't learned about personal space or social boundaries. Do you want to see my presents? Lucy asked. I got 3. 3 whole presents! The joy in her voice at receiving 3 gifts made Lena's throat tight. She thought about the Christmases of her childhood, when the living room floor had been covered in wrapping paper, when her brother had complained about getting too many socks, when abundance had been taken for granted. I'd love to see them, Lena managed. Lucy jumped up and ran to the tree, returning with her treasures. A coloring book and a small pack of crayons. A book about a mouse who went on adventures, and a small snow globe with a tiny Christmas tree inside that played music when you wound it up. This one's my favorite, Lucy said, shaking the globe and watching the glitter fall. It's like magic, isn't it? It is, Lena agreed, watching the child's face light up with wonder at something that probably cost $5. Noah returned with coffee in a chipped mug. Sorry, we don't have cream or sugar. Mrs. Chen next door might have some if you need it. Black is fine, Lena said, accepting the mug. Thank you. He sat in the armchair across from them, and Lena noticed how he perched on the edge, like he was ready to jump up at any moment, to be useful, to take care of whatever needed taking care of. His hands wrapped around his own mug, and she saw they were working hands, calloused, with a few healing cuts and bruises. So, Noah said, clearly struggling with small talk, did you find us okay? Yes, the directions were perfect. Good, good. An awkward silence settled over them, broken only by Lucy humming to herself as she played with her snow globe. Lena searched desperately for something to say, some way to bridge the enormous gap between her world and theirs. Can I open my presents now? Lucy asked, saving them both. Noah laughed. You already opened your presents, Lucy Goose. But Lena brought presents. Can I open those? That's up to Lena. The child turned to her with pleading eyes that were impossible to resist. Please? Of course, Lena said. Lucy tore into the wrapping with the enthusiasm of a child who knew that presents were precious and rare. When she pulled out the art kit, her gasp was audible. Daddy, look! It has everything, markers and paints and colored pencils and, oh my goodness, is this real watercolor? Wow, Noah said softly, leaning forward to see. That's really something, Lucy. Can I use it? Can I make something right now? Maybe later, sweetheart. We should spend time with our guest first. But Lena surprised herself by saying, Actually, I'd love to see what you create, if that's okay. Lucy looked at her father, who nodded, and then she was off like a shot to the small kitchen table, carefully unpacking her new treasures with reverent hands. Noah stood to spread newspaper over the table, to fill a cup with water for the paints, to make sure his daughter had everything she needed. This is too much, he said quietly to Lena, while Lucy was absorbed in choosing colors. That art kit probably costs more than— Please don't, Lena interrupted. I wanted to give her something. She invited me into your home. It's the least I could do. Noah studied her for a long moment. Most people wouldn't have come. A stranger's invitation to a place like this, most people would have made an excuse. I almost did, Lena admitted, about 3 times this morning. What changed your mind? Lena watched Lucy, who was now carefully painting what looked like a Christmas tree with painstaking concentration. I didn't want to be alone anymore. The honesty surprised them both. Noah sat back down, something shifting in his expression. A recognition, maybe, of one lonely person seeing another. We're glad you came, he said simply. The next hour passed more easily than Lena had expected. Lucy painted, narrating her creative process in a stream of consciousness that required no response, just presence. Noah excused himself to check on something in the kitchen. The smell of roasting chicken had been growing stronger, and Lena found herself actually relaxing into the sagging couch, actually feeling her shoulders unknot. When Lucy declared her painting finished, she brought it over with pride. It's for you! The painting showed a Christmas tree, somewhat lopsided, with 3 figures beneath it, one tall, one medium, one small. They were holding hands, rendered in the simple style of childhood art, but the intention was clear. That's you and me and Daddy, Lucy explained, pointing to each figure, having Christmas together. Lena took the painting with trembling hands. When was the last time someone had made her something? When was the last time someone had thought she was worth the effort of creation? It's beautiful, she whispered. It's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me. Lucy beamed. Really? Really? Noah appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Lucy, why don't you wash up for lunch? We're almost ready. The little girl scampered off to the bathroom, and Noah approached Lena, concern in his eyes. You okay? You look— I'm fine, Lena said quickly, swiping at her eyes. I can't remember the last time someone made me something. Noah sat beside her on the couch, close enough that she could smell his soap, something simple and clean. Lucy has a gift for that. Seeing people, really seeing them. She sees you, Lena said, thinking of the way the child looked at her father with such trust and love. She adores you. Something painful crossed Noah's face. I'm not giving her the life she deserves. We're living in someone else's apartment because I can't afford our own place. I paid for her Christmas presents with change I'd been saving for 3 months. Last week she asked me why we never go out for dinner anymore, and I had to tell her it was because home cooking is healthier. She doesn't care about any of that, Lena said with certainty. She has you. That's all she needs. Is it though? Noah's voice was rough with emotion. Is it enough to have a father who counts quarters, who can't even buy himself a hot chocolate without stress, who's barely keeping his head above water? Lena thought about her own father, who hadn't been wealthy but had been present, who had made her feel safe and loved and valued. My father was a mechanic, she heard herself say. We didn't have much, but he was there. Every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every time I needed him. And when he died, what I missed wasn't the things he gave me. It was him. Just him. Noah looked at her, really looked at her, and Lena had the feeling of being seen in a way she hadn't allowed in years. "What happened to him?" he asked gently. "Car accident. Drunk driver. He and my mother and my brother, all at once." The words came easier than she expected. "I was 19, and I decided that the only way to survive was to never let anyone that close again." "I'm sorry," Noah said, and the simple words carried genuine compassion. "What about Lucy's mother?" Lena asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Noah's jaw tightened. "She left when Lucy was 2. Said she wasn't cut out for motherhood, that she needed to find herself. Haven't heard from her since." "I'm sorry," Lena echoed. "Don't be. We're better off." He paused. "That sounds harsh, but it's true. Lucy deserves someone who wants to be here, not someone who feels trapped." Lucy emerged from the bathroom, hands clean and still damp. "I'm ready." Noah stood, his moment of vulnerability closing up. "All right, let's eat." The table was set with mismatched plates and silverware. The chicken was small but perfectly roasted, surrounded by potatoes and carrots. There was also a bowl of something green that Lucy eyed suspiciously. "Brussels sprouts," Noah said, catching his daughter's expression. "You have to eat at least 3. "Do I have to?" "You do." They sat down, Noah and Lucy on one side, Lena across from them, and for a moment Lena felt panic rise in her throat. This was too intimate, too much like a family. She didn't belong here. She should make an excuse, leave now before she got any more attached to this warmth that wasn't hers to keep. But then Noah served her a generous portion of chicken, and Lucy asked if she could say something before they ate, and Lena found herself nodding, unable to speak. Lucy clasped her hands together and closed her eyes. "Thank you for this food, and thank you for Daddy, and thank you for Lena coming to have Christmas with us, and thank you for Mrs. Chen letting us use her apartment, and thank you for my new art kit, and—" "Lucy," Noah said gently, "I think that's enough thankful things for now." "But I have more." "You can be thankful silently." Lucy opened one eye, grinned, then nodded solemnly. They ate, and Lena discovered that Noah could cook. The chicken was tender and flavorful, the vegetables perfectly seasoned. It was simple food, nothing fancy, but it was made with care and it tasted like home. "This is delicious," she said. Noah looked pleased. "Thanks, it's my mom's recipe, one of the few things she taught me before she passed." "When did she die?" 5 years ago, cancer." Lena did the math. So he'd lost his mother, become a single father, and was clearly struggling financially, all while keeping a smile on his face for his daughter. She thought about her own grief, how it had turned her cold and closed off, and marveled at how he'd managed to stay warm. Lucy chattered through lunch, telling stories about school and her friend Madison and Mrs. Chen's cat, Mr. Whiskers. Noah interjected occasionally, adding details or gently correcting exaggerations, and their easy banter was like watching a well-rehearsed dance. Lena mostly listened, contributed when asked a direct question, and felt something in her chest that had been frozen for years begin to thaw. This was what she'd been missing. Not the food or the decorations, or even the company specifically. It was this. The casual intimacy of shared meals, the feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself, the knowledge that you mattered to someone, and they mattered to you. After lunch, Lucy insisted on opening the stuffed bear, and she hugged it immediately to her chest. "I'm naming him Coco," she declared, "because his fur is brown like cocoa." "That's a perfect name," Lena said. "Can we watch a movie?" Lucy asked her father. "A Christmas movie?" Noah glanced at Lena. "If that's okay with our guest." "I'd like that," Lena said, and meant it. They settled on the couch, Lucy in the middle, clutching Coco, with Noah on one side and Lena on the other. The TV was small, and the picture wasn't great, but when the movie started, none of that mattered. Lucy's running commentary was more entertaining than the film itself, and twice Lena caught Noah's eye over his daughter's head, and they shared a smile of mutual understanding. Halfway through the movie, Lucy's head began to droop. She fought it valiantly, but eventually she curled up against her father's side, Coco trapped between them, and fell asleep. Noah adjusted her gently, making sure she was comfortable, and his love for this child was so palpable it made Lena's chest ache. "I should probably go," Lena whispered. "Let you guys rest." "You don't have to," Noah said quietly. I mean, if you want to stay. We're not doing anything special, but you're welcome. Lena looked at the sleeping child, at the father who'd invited a stranger into his home on the strength of his daughter's kind heart, at the Christmas tree with its homemade ornaments and the painting Lucy had made still drying on the kitchen table. She thought about her penthouse, waiting empty and silent. She thought about all the Christmases she'd spent alone, telling herself it was better this way, safer this way, easier this way. She thought about her mother, who would have loved this, the warmth, the generosity, the opening of hearts. I'd like to stay, Lena said, if that's really okay. It's okay, Noah assured her. So she stayed. She stayed through the rest of the movie, through Lucy waking up and insisting they have cookies from the bakery box, through an impromptu game of cards that Lucy made up rules for as she went along. She stayed as the afternoon faded into evening, as the Christmas lights outside began to glow, as the apartment filled with the kind of comfortable silence that only comes when people feel safe together. And somewhere in those hours, sitting at a second-hand table in an apartment smaller than her closet, Lena Whitaker began to remember what it felt like to be part of something real. It was nearly 7 when Lena finally checked her phone and saw the dozen missed calls from her assistant, the urgent emails flagged in red, the text messages that grew increasingly frantic as the day progressed. The world she'd left behind that morning was demanding her attention, reminding her that she had responsibilities, obligations, a company that didn't stop needing her just because it was Christmas. Everything okay? Noah asked, noticing her expression change as she scrolled through the notifications. Work, Lena said, her voice tight. There's always something. Lucy looked up from where she was arranging Coco and her other stuffed animals into an elaborate tea party scene. But it's Christmas. Nobody works on Christmas. Lena felt the familiar weight settling back onto her shoulders, the armor she wore in her other life clicking back into place. Some people do, sweetheart. That's sad, Lucy declared with the moral certainty of childhood. It is, Lena agreed quietly, and saw Noah watching her with something like understanding in his eyes. She should leave. She should call James, return to her penthouse, handle whatever crisis couldn't wait until tomorrow. That was what the old Lena would have done. The Lena who existed before yesterday, before a little girl with wild curls had invited her to remember what it meant to be human. But when she opened her mouth to make her excuses, what came out instead was, "Can I use your bathroom?" "Of course," Noah said, pointing down the short hallway. "First door on the right." Lena locked herself in the small bathroom and sat on the closed toilet lid, phone clutched in her trembling hands. The bathroom was tiny, the fixtures old, but it was clean, and there were cheerful, fish-shaped soaps in a dish and a step stool so Lucy could reach the sink. Evidence of care, of love, of a life being lived with intention despite its constraints. She called her assistant. "Miss Whitaker." Diane's voice was sharp with relief and frustration. "I've been trying to reach you for hours. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The Singapore deal. Chen Electronics is threatening to pull out. They want to renegotiate terms, and they want to speak with you directly. They've given us until tomorrow morning, their time, which means I have about 6 hours," Lena finished. Her mind was already shifting gears, analyzing, strategizing. This deal represented 18 months of work, a significant expansion into Asian markets, millions of dollars in projected revenue. Losing it would be more than a setback. It would be a statement of weakness, blood in the water for competitors. "I need you in the office," Diane said. "The team is standing by. We can conference Chen in, work through the night if we have to." Lena looked at herself in the mirror above the sink. She looked different than she had that morning, softer somehow, less polished, more real. There was color in her cheeks from Lucy's excited games, and her hair had come loose from its ponytail during the movie. She looked like someone who'd spent Christmas with people she cared about. She looked like someone who had something to lose. "Give me an hour," Lena heard herself say. "I'll be there." She ended the call and sat in the silence of the small bathroom, listening to the sounds of life beyond the door. Lucy's laughter, Noah's gentle voice, the television playing something cheerful, a world that had existed before she arrived and would continue after she left. The choice should have been easy. Work was what she knew, what she was good at, what gave her life structure and purpose. This, sitting on someone else's toilet, wearing yesterday's sweater, pretending to be part of a family that wasn't hers. This was temporary. A pleasant interlude. Nothing more. But when she emerged from the bathroom, Lucy was waiting in the hallway with Coco clutched to her chest and hope shining in her eyes. "You're not leaving, are you?" the little girl asked. "You promised you'd stay for Christmas." "Lucy," Noah said from behind her, his voice gentle but firm. "Lena has her own life. We can't expect her to—" "I'm not leaving," Lena interrupted, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "Not yet. I just need to make a few calls. Is there somewhere private I could—" "You can use my room," Noah offered. "It's the second door, fair warning. It's not much." Lucy's face transformed with relief and joy. "You're staying! Did you hear that, Daddy? She's staying!" Lena made her way to Noah's room, her heart pounding with the magnitude of what she was about to do. The room was exactly what she'd expected, small, spare, with a double bed that took up most of the space and a single dresser that had seen better decades. But it was neat, the bed made with military precision, and there were photos taped to the mirror. Lucy at various ages, a woman who must have been Noah's mother, a candid shot of father and daughter laughing at something outside the frame, their faces alight with pure joy. This was a room belonging to someone who had very little but took care of what he had. Someone who understood that the important things couldn't be bought. Lena sat on the edge of the bed and pulled up her contacts. Her finger hovered over Diane's number, then moved to someone else. Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Electronics. They'd met in person twice, had built what she thought was mutual respect during the negotiations. He answered on the third ring, sounding tired. "Ms. Whitaker, I was beginning to think you were avoiding me." "Never," Lena said smoothly, slipping into her professional persona like a familiar coat. "Though I am surprised to be discussing business on Christmas Day." "The American Christmas," Marcus corrected. "For some of us, it's just Thursday." "Fair point. I understand you have concerns about our agreement." "Not concerns. Realities. The market has shifted in the past month. The terms we agreed to no longer reflect current conditions. My board is pushing for significant revisions." Lena closed her eyes, ran through the numbers in her head, calculated margins and projections and acceptable losses. "What kind of revisions?" 20% reduction in initial payment, extended timeline on deliverables, and modification of the exclusivity clause. It was worse than she'd thought. Those terms would gut the deal, make it barely worth pursuing. Her team would be devastated. Her board would question her judgment. Competitors would sense weakness. The old Lena would have fought, would have spent the next 6 hours on the phone, mobilizing resources, finding leverage, doing whatever it took to win, because winning was what she did. It was who she was. But from the other room, she heard Lucy laughing at something, the sound pure and bright and completely unconcerned with market conditions or profit margins. "Marcus," Lena said slowly, "can I ask you something personal?" There was a pause. "I suppose. Do you have children?" Another pause, longer this time. "2 daughters, 10 and 13. "What are they doing right now?" They're at their grandmother's house, waiting for me to finish this call so I can join them for dinner." Lena looked at the photos on Noah's mirror, at the evidence of a life built on love instead of achievement. "How many dinners have you missed this year? How many times have you chosen work over them?" "Ms. Whitaker, I'm not sure what this has to do with—" "Because I've missed everything," Lena continued, her voice cracking slightly. "Every birthday, every holiday, every moment that mattered. I told myself it was worth it, that building something significant was worth the sacrifice. But tonight, sitting in a stranger's home, watching a little girl who has nothing be happier than I've ever been with everything. I'm not sure I believe that anymore." The line was quiet for so long that Lena thought the call had dropped. Then Marcus spoke, his voice different, more human. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe we both need to think about what we're really negotiating for here. Yes, the market has shifted. Yes, terms need to be adjusted. But maybe not tonight. Maybe tonight we both go have dinner with people who love us, and tomorrow we come back to this as human beings instead of just executives protecting territory." "You would walk away from this deal?" Marcus sounded genuinely shocked. "No," Lena said, "but I would delay it. 1 week. We reconvene after the new year with clear heads and honest intentions. Either we find terms that work for both of us, or we acknowledge that this partnership isn't meant to be. But we don't destroy our holidays and disappoint our children over it. Marcus let out a long breath. My daughters would like that. They've been asking when I'll be done with the boring phone calls. So would the little girl in the next room who invited me to spend Christmas with her family, Lena said. She deserves to have people show up when they promise to. You make a compelling argument, Miss Whitaker. 1 week then. We'll reconvene January 2nd. Agreed. Now go have dinner with your daughters, Marcus. Enjoy your Christmas, Miss Whitaker. It sounds like you've earned it. Lena ended the call and sat in the quiet of Noah's room, shaking slightly from what she'd just done. In her 15 years of running Whitaker Technologies, she had never delayed a negotiation, never put personal life ahead of business imperatives, never shown anything that could be interpreted as weakness. But she also had never felt the weight lift from her shoulders the way it did now. She called Diane next. Please tell me you're on your way, her assistant said by way of greeting. I'm not. The deal is postponed until January 2nd. Chen and I agreed we both need time with our families. Diane was silent for a beat. I'm sorry, did you just say families? As in, you're with family right now? Friends, Lena corrected. New friends. But yes. Ms. Whitaker, are you feeling all right? Should I be concerned? Lena laughed, surprising herself. Probably, but for once I'm exactly where I need to be. Take the rest of the night off, Diane. Spend it with your husband. That's an order. Okay. Thank you. Merry Christmas, Ms. Whitaker. Merry Christmas. When Lena emerged from the bedroom, she found Noah in the kitchen washing dishes while Lucy colored at the table with her new art supplies. The domestic scene was so ordinary, so peaceful, that Lena had to stop and just look at it, committing it to memory. Noah glanced up and caught her watching. Everything okay? Actually, yes, Lena said. Everything's okay. Lucy looked up from her drawing. Can you stay for dinner? We have leftovers, and Mrs. Chen said she might bring over some dumplings later. Lena checked her watch. It was past 7. She'd been here for almost 9 hours. Every instinct told her she was overstaying her welcome, imposing on their hospitality, crossing boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. But Lucy's hopeful face and Noah's gentle smile made those instincts seem hollow, irrelevant. I'd love to stay for dinner, Lena said. The evening unfolded with the same easy warmth as the afternoon. Mrs. Chen did indeed appear with dumplings, a tiny elderly woman with bright eyes and a laugh like wind chimes who seemed completely unsurprised to find a stranger in Noah's apartment. Any friend of Lucy's is a friend of mine, she declared, pressing the still warm container into Lena's hands. You make sure she eats. This one is too thin. She pointed at Noah, who rolled his eyes with affection. I'm working on it, Mrs. Chen. Work harder. She turned to Lena. You make sure he eats too. Both of them, always worried about everyone else, never themselves. After she left, Noah heated the dumplings along with the leftover chicken and vegetables, and they ate a second meal together. Lucy was getting tired now, her earlier energy flagging, but she fought sleep with determination, clearly not wanting Christmas to end. Tell us about where you live, she demanded of Lena between yawns. Do you have a Christmas tree? I do, Lena said. It's very big. Bigger than ours? Much bigger. 12 feet tall. Lucy's eyes went wide. 12 feet? How do you put the star on top? I don't, Lena admitted. Someone else does it for me. That's cheating, Lucy said matter-of-factly. The best part is putting the star on. Right, Daddy? Absolutely right, Noah agreed, though Lena saw something flicker across his face, probably the memory of holding Lucy up so she could place their modest star, creating traditions with whatever they had. What does your house look like? Lucy pressed on. Lena thought about her penthouse with its designer furniture and perfect aesthetics. It's very clean, very quiet, very empty. Don't you have any people? The question, asked with such innocent directness, hit Lena like a physical blow. No, sweetheart, I don't have any people. You do now, Lucy declared, and reached across the table to pat Lena's hand with sticky fingers. You have me and Daddy. We can be your people. Lena looked at Noah, expecting him to correct his daughter, to explain that people didn't work that way, that you couldn't just decide to be someone's family after knowing them for a day. But instead, Noah met her eyes and said quietly, "She's right. If you want people, we can be your people." Something broke open in Lena's chest, something that had been locked away for so long she'd forgotten it existed. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them, and she was mortified until she saw that Noah's eyes were bright too. "I would like that very much," she whispered. Lucy, satisfied with this arrangement, yawned hugely. "Okay, good. Now, can we have dessert?" They ate the chocolate cake from the bakery, and it was the best thing Lena had ever tasted, not because of its quality, but because of the company. Lucy got frosting on her nose and made everyone laugh. Noah told stories about disastrous attempts at baking that made Lucy shriek with remembered laughter. Lena found herself contributing, sharing a story about the time she'd tried to make cookies in her college dorm and set off the fire alarm, evacuating the entire building at 2 in the morning. "You're funny," Lucy declared, as if this was a revelation. "Am I?" Lena asked, genuinely surprised. She couldn't remember the last time someone had called her funny. "Very funny. I like you." "I like you too, Lucy." After dinner, Lucy's yawns could no longer be suppressed. Noah scooped her up, cocoa and all, and carried her toward the small second bedroom that must be hers. "Say goodnight to Lena," he prompted. "Goodnight, Lena," Lucy mumbled, already half asleep. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Lena felt her heart squeeze. "If it's okay with your dad, I'd like that." "Course it's okay," Lucy said with absolute certainty, and then she was out, her head dropping onto Noah's shoulder. Noah carried her away, and Lena heard the sounds of bedtime rituals through the thin walls. Gentle murmuring, the creak of bed springs. A lullaby hummed off-key. She stood alone in the small living room, surrounded by the evidence of their Christmas, and felt more at home than she had in her own penthouse in years. When Noah returned, he looked exhausted but content. "Sorry about that. She crashes hard when she finally goes down." "Don't apologize. She's wonderful. You're wonderful with her." Noah ran a hand through his hair, suddenly awkward. "Can I get you anything? More coffee? There's probably some wine somewhere if Mrs. Chen didn't take it all." "Actually," Lena said, "could we just sit? Talk?" They settled back on the couch, a respectable distance between them, and for a moment neither spoke. The Christmas tree lights blinked in the corner, casting shifting shadows across the room. "Thank you," Lena said finally. "For today. For letting me be part of this. Thank you for coming. Lucy was worried you wouldn't show up. Hell, I was worried you wouldn't show up." "I almost didn't." "What changed your mind?" Lena considered the question. "Loneliness, I guess, and curiosity. I couldn't remember what it felt like to be around people who weren't employees or clients or competitors, people who wanted nothing from me except my presence." "Is that what your life is like? Everyone wanting something?" "Always. It's exhausting." She paused. "What do you do? For work, I mean." Noah's expression darkened slightly. "Right now? Whatever I can get. I'm between jobs. Lost my position at a warehouse 3 months ago when they downsized. I've been doing day labor, odd jobs. Anything to keep us afloat." "Is that why you're staying here? In Mrs. Chen's apartment?" He nodded, shame flickering across his features. "We lost our place when I couldn't make rent. Mrs. Chen's grandson usually lives here, but he's overseas for a year, so she's letting us stay. Charging us almost nothing. We'd be on the streets otherwise." Lena felt her chest tighten. "What about family? Anyone who could help?" "My mom was it. Lucy's mother's family wants nothing to do with us, and I'd rather struggle than go crawling to people who made it clear we weren't welcome." He laughed bitterly. "Ironic, isn't it? You're probably worth more than I'll make in my entire lifetime, and here we are, having Christmas dinner together." "Here we are," Lena echoed softly. She thought about the money in her accounts, the resources at her disposal, the power she wielded. She could change Noah's life with a phone call, write a check that would solve his immediate problems without making a dent in her wealth. But something stopped her from making the offer. Some instinct that told her Noah's pride was important, that he needed to maintain his dignity, that charity, no matter how well-intentioned, would damage the fragile connection they were building. Instead, she asked, "What did you do? Before the warehouse?" "Construction." I was good at it too. Worked my way up to crew leader. But the company went under during the recession, and I had to take whatever I could get to support Lucy. He paused. What about you? You said work was calling. What do you do that's so important you get crisis calls on Christmas? Lena hesitated. She could lie, downplay it, avoid the truth. But Lucy had painted them holding hands under a Christmas tree. Noah had invited her to be his people. She owed him honesty. I run a tech company, Whitaker Technologies. We develop software for... She saw his expression change, recognition dawning. You've heard of it. Heard of it? Lena, everyone's heard of it. You're a billionaire. You're famous. I'm successful, Lena corrected. There's a difference. Noah stood up, pacing the small space. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me assume you were just... I don't know what I assumed. Someone normal. Because I wanted to be normal. Just for a day. Is that so terrible? No, but... He turned to face her. Lena, we paid for hot chocolate with quarters. You watched me count change. You sat there and you didn't say anything. What was I supposed to say? Don't worry about the money, I'm rich? Would that have made you feel better? It would have made me feel less like an idiot. You're not an idiot, Lena said fiercely, standing to face him. You're a good father doing everything you can for your daughter. There's no shame in that. Easy for you to say from your penthouse. The words hung between them, sharp and painful. Lena felt the distance opening up again, the gulf between their worlds reasserting itself. You're right, she said quietly. It is easy for me to say. I don't know what it's like to count quarters or worry about rent or wonder how I'm going to feed my child. But I do know what it's like to be alone. I know what it's like to have everything money can buy and nothing that matters. And today, for the first time in almost 20 years, I felt like I mattered to someone. Not because of what I could do for them or what I could buy them, but just because I showed up. Noah's anger deflated as quickly as it had risen. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have... You have every right to be angry. I should have told you. Lena's voice cracked. I just wanted one day where I wasn't the CEO or the success story or the woman who has it all. I wanted to be just Lena. You are just Lena, Noah said, stepping closer. That's who Lucy invited to Christmas. That's who sat on my couch and played made-up card games and cried over a child's painting. The money doesn't change that. Doesn't it? It changes everything else. Not everything. Noah reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. His palm was calloused and warm, so different from the soft hands of executives she usually dealt with. You came back today. You could have sent a check or a gift basket or whatever rich people do. But you came back. You sat at our table. You let Lucy paint you a picture. That matters more than any amount of money. Lena looked down at their joined hands, feeling the simple human contact like an electric current. I postponed a major business deal tonight. My assistant thinks I've lost my mind. Have you? Maybe. Probably. She laughed through tears. I chose you. I chose Lucy. I chose being here over everything I've spent my entire adult life building. And I'm terrified because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be someone's people. Neither do I, Noah admitted. I'm barely keeping my head above water. I'm one missed paycheck from losing even this borrowed apartment. I can't offer you anything except what I need most, Lena finished. Somewhere to belong. They stood there in the small living room, hands clasped, two broken people who'd found each other in the least likely place. Outside, snow began to fall, visible through the window in the soft glow of streetlights. Inside, the Christmas tree lights continued their patient blinking. Stay, Noah said suddenly. Not just tonight. Come back tomorrow. And the day after. Let us be your people. Really be your people. Noah, I know it's crazy. I know we barely know each other, but Lucy already loves you and I... He paused, seeming to gather courage. I haven't felt this connected to anyone since my mother died. You get it. The loneliness, the loss, the fear of letting anyone in. What if I hurt you? Lena whispered. What if I let you down? I'm very good at that. What if you don't? What if we figure it out together? Lena thought about her penthouse, her careful routines, her controlled life. She thought about the walls she'd built, and the price she'd paid for safety. She thought about her mother, who had never met a stranger, who had believed in community and connection and the beautiful risk of loving people. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Okay, yes, I'll come back tomorrow." Noah's smile transformed his face, erasing years of worry and exhaustion. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He pulled her into a hug, and Lena stiffened for just a moment before melting into it. When was the last time someone had hugged her? Not a professional handshake or an air kiss, but a real embrace that said you matter, you belong, you're home. She felt his heartbeat against her cheek, steady and strong. She felt his breath in her hair. She felt the simple human warmth of being held, and something fundamental shifted inside her. This was what she'd been missing. This was what all the money and success and achievement had been trying to replace. The basic human need to be known, to be seen, to be loved, not for what you could do, but for who you were. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. "I should probably go," Lena said, though she didn't want to. "It's late." "Let me call you a cab." "I have a driver. I'll text him." She pulled out her phone, and the mundane action felt surreal after the intensity of the moment. While they waited for James to arrive, Lena gathered her coat and her things. Lucy's painting was still on the kitchen table, dry now, and Lena picked it up carefully. "Can I keep this?" "Lucy would be heartbroken if you didn't." At the door they stood awkwardly, neither quite wanting to say goodbye. "Tomorrow," Noah said. "What time?" "Whenever you want me." 10. We could have breakfast. Lucy would love that. 10 is perfect. James texted that he was outside. Lena put on her coat, aware of Noah watching her, aware of the enormity of what they were attempting. "Lena?" Noah said as she opened the door. "Yeah?" "Thank you for choosing us." She smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Thank you for letting me." The drive home was quiet. James asked no questions, though she caught him glancing at her in the rearview mirror, probably noting her tear-stained face and the painting she held like it was made of spun glass. When she entered her penthouse, the silence felt different, not peaceful, but temporary. This wasn't home. Home was a small apartment with mismatched furniture and a little girl who painted pictures of families. Lena hung Lucy's painting on her refrigerator with a magnet, the only decoration in her perfect kitchen. Then she went to bed and slept better than she had in years, dreaming of Christmas trees and gap-toothed smiles and hands that held hers like she was worth keeping. The morning after Christmas, Lena woke at 5 a.m. Out of pure habit, her body conditioned by years of pre-dawn workouts and early conference calls. But instead of reaching for her laptop, she lay in bed watching the city wake up through her floor-to-ceiling windows, thinking about a little girl who would probably sleep until 8, and a father who would wake even earlier to make sure his daughter had breakfast. She showered and dressed with more care than usual, changing outfits 3 times before settling on jeans and a soft blue sweater that made her look approachable instead of intimidating. She made coffee in her expensive machine and drank it standing at the counter, looking at Lucy's painting on her refrigerator. 3 figures holding hands. A family. "We can be your people." The words echoed in her mind, terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. Lena had built her entire adult life on the principle of self-sufficiency, on never needing anyone, on protecting herself from the pain of loss. And now she was deliberately walking toward connection, toward vulnerability, toward all the things that could destroy her if they went wrong. Her phone buzzed, a text from Noah. "Lucy woke up asking if you were really coming back. Just wanted to make sure yesterday wasn't a dream." Lena smiled and typed back, "Not a dream. I'll be there at 10. Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself." Just herself. When was the last time that had been enough for anyone? She arrived at the apartment building at exactly 10 o'clock, carrying another box from the bakery because showing up empty-handed felt wrong, even though Noah had said not to bring anything. Before she could buzz the apartment, the door flew open and Lucy barreled out, still in her pajamas, Coco clutched under one arm. "You came! You came! Daddy said you would, but I was worried you might be too busy." "I'm never too busy for you," Lena said, and was startled by how much she meant it. Lucy grabbed her free hand and dragged her inside and up the stairs, chattering the entire way about how she'd dreamed about the art supplies, and how Mrs. Chen's cat had caught a mouse, and how she wanted to paint another picture for Lena if that was okay. Noah met them at the door, looking apologetic and amused. Sorry, she's been watching the window for the past hour. Lucy, let Lena breathe. It's fine, Lena said, and realized it was. The enthusiasm, the lack of boundaries, the pure joy at her presence, it was everything she hadn't known she needed. They had breakfast together, simple scrambled eggs and toast, and Lena found herself laughing at Lucy's elaborate story about a princess who lived in a castle made entirely of pancakes. Noah caught her eye across the table and smiled, and something warm unfurled in Lena's chest. This became their rhythm. Lena showed up every morning, sometimes bringing pastries, sometimes just herself. She learned that Lucy loved knock-knock jokes but told them badly, that Noah made the best grilled cheese sandwiches she'd ever tasted, that Mrs. Chen was teaching Lucy Mandarin and the little girl could count to 10 with perfect pronunciation. She learned what it meant to be part of someone's daily life, not the sanitized, scheduled version she was used to in business meetings, but the messy, beautiful reality of existence. She was there when Lucy had a tantrum about wearing her winter coat. She was there when Noah burned dinner and they had to order pizza. She was there for movie nights and card games and the comfortable silences that came when people were genuinely at ease together. A week passed, then two. The new year came and went. Lena negotiated the Singapore deal from Noah's couch while Lucy colored beside her and somehow secured better terms than she'd originally hoped for. Marcus Chen had come back to the table refreshed and reasonable, and they'd found middle ground that satisfied both companies. See, Noah had said when she'd hung up, triumphant, the world didn't end because you took Christmas off. But other parts of Lena's world were beginning to show cracks. Her assistant noticed the change first. Ms. Whitaker, you've declined 3 networking dinners this month, Diane said during their weekly check-in. And you left the office at 5 yesterday. 5s. Are you feeling well? I'm feeling better than I have in years, Lena said truthfully. It's just, people are noticing. They're wondering if something's changed. Something had changed. Everything had changed. But Lena wasn't ready to examine it too closely, wasn't ready to acknowledge what it meant that she'd rather have dinner with a struggling single father and his 6-year-old daughter than attend another sterile business function. She tried to balance both worlds, spending mornings and evenings with Noah and Lucy, putting in full days at the office. But the office felt different now. Hollow, performative, like she was going through motions that no longer held meaning. The deals that used to energize her felt empty. The power plays that used to intrigue her seemed petty and small. One evening in mid-January, she was at her desk finishing a proposal when her phone rang. Noah's number. He never called during work hours, always respectful of her time. Hey, she answered. Is everything okay? It's Lucy. His voice was tight with barely controlled panic. She fell at school. They think she might have broken her wrist. I'm at the hospital now, but which hospital? Lena was already grabbing her coat. Seattle Children's, but Lena, you don't have to. I'm on my way. She made it to the hospital in 20 minutes, finding Noah in the emergency room waiting area, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. He stood when he saw her, relief flooding his features. You didn't have to come. Of course I did. Lena sat beside him, taking his hand. What happened? She was playing tag at recess, tripped over her own feet. You know, Lucy, always moving too fast. He tried to smile, but it came out wrong. They took her for x-rays. I'm just waiting to hear. Have you eaten anything? What? No, I couldn't. Lena squeezed his hand. I'll get us both coffee. You're not doing Lucy any good if you fall apart. She returned with terrible hospital coffee and somehow coaxed Noah into drinking it. They sat in silence, hands clasped, until a doctor emerged calling Lucy's name. Mr. Brooks? Your daughter has a minor fracture. We'll need to cast it, but she should heal completely in about 6 weeks. Noah's whole body sagged with relief. Can I see her? Of course, she's been very brave, asking for her daddy. They followed the doctor to a small room where Lucy sat on an examination table, her left arm at an awkward angle, tears streaking her face. But when she saw Noah, her expression brightened. Daddy! And Lena! You both came! Of course we came, Lucy Goose. Noah gathered her carefully into his arms. How's my brave girl? It hurts, Lucy admitted in a small voice. But the nurse gave me a sticker. Lena felt tears prick her eyes at the child's resilience, at the way such a small thing could bring comfort. The casting process took an hour. Lucy chose purple for her cast and insisted that both Noah and Lena be the first to sign it. As Noah carefully wrote his name, Lena watched the way he touched his daughter's hair, the gentle murmur of reassurance he kept up, the love evident in every gesture. This was what parenting looked like. Not the sanitized version from commercials or movies, but the real thing, fear and relief and exhaustion and love all tangled together. When they finally left the hospital, it was nearly 8 p.m. Noah looked wrung out, and Lucy was fighting sleep despite her determination to stay awake. "Let me drive you home," Lena offered. "You don't have to—" "Noah, let me help." He nodded, too tired to argue. In the car, Lucy fell asleep almost immediately, her casted arm cradled carefully against her chest. Noah stared out the window, and Lena could see the worry etched into every line of his face. "The hospital bill," he said quietly. "Even with the state insurance, there's going to be a copay. And she'll need follow-up visits, maybe physical therapy. His voice cracked. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it." This was the moment Lena could write a check, could solve this problem with a fraction of her wealth, could be the hero who swooped in and saved the day. But something stopped her. Some memory of the look on Noah's face when he'd realized who she was, the shame in his voice when he'd said, "You watched me count change." "You'll figure it out," she said instead. "You always do." "Do I?" Noah laughed bitterly. "Because from where I'm sitting, I'm one crisis away from losing everything. Again." They rode the rest of the way in silence. Lena helped carry Lucy upstairs, the little girl barely stirring as Noah tucked her into bed. They stood in the doorway of her room, watching her sleep, and Lena felt the weight of all the things she couldn't fix, all the ways her money was useless in the face of his pride and her fear of overstepping. "I should go," she said. "Yeah, thanks for coming. It meant a lot." But as she reached the door, Noah caught her arm. "Lena, wait. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have dumped all that on you. It's not your problem." "I want it to be my problem," she said fiercely. "That's what people do for each other. They share problems." "Even when there's no solution?" "Especially then." Noah pulled her into a hug, and they stood there for a long moment, holding each other up. When they separated, Lena saw something in his eyes that made her heart race. Want, need, possibility. "I should really go," she whispered. "You keep saying that." "I know." But neither of them moved. The space between them felt charged, electric. Lena could see the exact moment Noah made a decision, the way his expression shifted from uncertainty to determination. "I'm going to kiss you now," he said, "if that's okay." "That's okay," Lena breathed. The kiss was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. His lips were soft against hers, his hand cupping her face with infinite care. Lena felt something crack open inside her chest, some final wall crumbling, and she kissed him back with all the loneliness and longing she'd been carrying for years. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," Noah admitted. "Me too. But Lena, I have to be honest. I have nothing to offer you. No money, no security, no guarantee that any of this will work out. You could have anyone. Why would you choose this? Choose us?" "Because you're real," Lena said simply. "Because Lucy paints me pictures, and you make me laugh. And when I'm here, I feel like myself, not the CEO or the success story or the woman who has it all, just me. And that's worth more than anything money can buy." Noah kissed her again, deeper this time, and Lena lost herself in it, in him, in the terrifying joy of letting someone in. The next morning, Lena woke in her own bed but spent an extra minute looking at Lucy's painting before heading to the office. She had an 8 a.m. meeting with her executive team, quarterly projections to review, 100 decisions that needed her attention. But all she could think about was Noah's kiss, Lucy's purple cast, the way they'd both looked at her like she was essential to their world. The meeting was torture. Her CFO droned on about revenue streams and market penetration, while Lena's mind wandered to a small apartment across the city. Her VP of operations asked her opinion on a proposed acquisition, and Lena had to ask him to repeat the question. Are you all right, Lena? Her CTO asked, concern in his voice. You seem distracted. I'm fine, she said automatically. Continue. But she wasn't fine. She was thinking about hospital bills and purple casts and a man who counted quarters but gave everything he had to his daughter. She was thinking about how to help without hurting, how to support without smothering, how to be part of their lives without overwhelming them with her resources. The answer came to her halfway through a presentation on user acquisition costs. Diane, she said, interrupting the meeting, set up a call with HR. I want to discuss our policies on hiring, specifically around candidates who might have gaps in their employment history or unconventional backgrounds. Her assistant blinked. Right now? After this meeting, but make it a priority. 3 days later, Lena sat across from Noah in a coffee shop, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear over it. I have a proposition for you, she said. Noah's expression immediately shuddered. Lena, we talked about this. I don't want your charity. It's not charity, it's a job offer. She slid a folder across the table. My company is expanding our facilities management division. We need someone to oversee construction and renovation projects. Someone with real construction experience who knows how to manage crews and timelines. Noah opened the folder, his eyes scanning the job description and salary information. She watched his face cycle through disbelief, hope, and suspicion. This salary is... Lena, this is more than I've ever made in my life. It's competitive for the position, maybe even a little below market rate, actually. Is this real? Or did you create a job just for me? Lena had known he would ask. She'd wrestled with the ethics of it for days, had argued with herself about manipulation and autonomy and the blurry line between helping and controlling. The position is real, she said carefully. We've been planning this expansion for months, but I'll be honest. When I saw the job posting, I immediately thought of you. You have the experience we need. You're hardworking, reliable, and detail-oriented. Would I have thought to offer it to you if we weren't involved? Probably not, but that doesn't make you less qualified. This feels like I'm trying to fix your life? Maybe I am. But Noah, you're good at this work. You told me you loved construction. This is a chance to do what you're good at, to provide for Lucy, to have stability. Is it so terrible that I want to help make that happen? Noah sat back, conflict clear on his face. If I take this job and things don't work out between us, then you still have the job. This isn't contingent on our relationship. I'm not that person. The offer stands regardless of what happens with us personally. What if I screw it up? What if I'm not good enough? Then you'll be fired like anyone else would be, Lena said bluntly. I'm not offering you charity, Noah. I'm offering you a chance. What you do with it is up to you. He looked at the folder again, and Lena saw the war playing out behind his eyes. Pride versus practicality, independence versus Lucy's needs, fear versus hope. Can I think about it? He asked finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. But that night, as Lena was leaving the office late, old habits dying hard, her phone rang. Noah's number. I'll take it, he said without preamble. The job. I'll take it. Lena felt relief and joy and terror flood through her. Yeah? Yeah, you're right. I'm good at this work, and Lucy deserves stability, and maybe I deserve a chance too. You do, Lena said fiercely. You absolutely do. When do I start? Monday. Come in at 9, we'll do all the onboarding paperwork. Lena? His voice was soft now, vulnerable. Thank you for seeing me, for believing I could do this. Thank you for letting me help. Monday came, and Lena was in a breakfast meeting when Diane texted her that Noah had arrived for his first day. She excused herself and went down to HR, telling herself she was just checking in, making sure the onboarding process was smooth, but really, she just wanted to see him. She found him in a conference room with the HR director, looking uncomfortable in a borrowed tie, filling out forms. When he saw her in the doorway, his face lit up. Ms. Whitaker, he said formally, and she appreciated his discretion. Mr. Brooks, welcome to Whitaker Technologies. I hope you're being taken care of. Very much so. Thank you. Their eyes held for a moment too long, and Lena saw the HR director notice, saw the speculation in her expression. Let them speculate. This was real. This was worth it. The next few weeks were a blur of adjustment. Noah threw himself into his new job with the intensity of someone who had something to prove. He arrived early, stayed late, learned faster than anyone expected. Lena watched from a distance, trying not to hover, trying to let him succeed on his own merits. But she couldn't help checking in, couldn't help asking his supervisor how he was doing, couldn't help feeling a surge of pride when the reports came back positive. Lucy adjusted too, though the cast made her clumsy and she got frustrated easily. Lena took to spending evenings at the apartment, helping with homework, reading stories, being present while Noah worked late to master his new responsibilities. One night, as she was tucking Lucy in, when had that become her job, the little girl grabbed her hand. "Lena, are you going to be my mom now?" The question hit Lena like a freight train. "What? You're here all the time. You and Daddy kiss sometimes when you think I'm not looking. You help me with stuff and read to me, and you sign my cast. That's what moms do, right?" Lena's throat closed up. "Lucy, your dad and I haven't talked about, do you love us?" The directness of the question left no room for evasion. Lena looked at this child who had invited her to Christmas, who had declared they could be her people, who had somehow worked her way into the center of Lena's carefully guarded heart. "Yes," she whispered, "I love you both very much." "Then you can be my mom, if you want to." "It's not that simple, sweetheart." "Why not? You love us. We love you. That seems pretty simple." If only it were. If only love was enough to overcome all the complications, the difference in their backgrounds, the power imbalance inherent in their situation, the very real possibility that Lena would mess this up like she'd messed up every relationship before. "Let me talk to your dad, okay?" "Okay. But I already know what he'll say." "What will he say?" "That he loves you too. He told Mrs. Chen, I heard him." Lena's heart stuttered. "He did?" Lucy nodded solemnly. "Last week. Mrs. Chen asked if you were his girlfriend, and he said you were more than that. He said you were—" She scrunched up her face, trying to remember the exact words, "everything I didn't know I was looking for." Lena left Lucy's room in a daze and found Noah in the kitchen, cleaning up dinner dishes. He looked up when she entered, and something in her expression made him put down the dish towel. "What's wrong?" "Lucy asked me if I was going to be her mom." Noah went very still. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I loved you both. Was that okay? Should I have checked with you first? I know we haven't talked about where this is going or what we are to each other, and maybe I should have been more careful." Noah crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and kissed her, stopping the flow of anxious words. When he pulled back, his hands were framing her face, his eyes intense. "I love you," he said. "I've been terrified to say it because I know how crazy this is, how fast we're moving, how impossible it should be. But I love you, Lena. Lucy loves you. And if you're willing to take a chance on us, on this messy, complicated, imperfect life, then I'm willing to figure out the rest as we go." "I'm scared," Lena admitted. "I'm so scared of screwing this up." "Me too, but I'm more scared of not trying." Lena thought about her parents, who had loved fearlessly and died too soon. She thought about the walls she'd built to protect herself, and the loneliness those walls had created. She thought about a little girl in a purple cast who had decided Lena could be her mom, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. Maybe it was. "Okay," she said, "let's try." They sealed it with a kiss, and for a moment everything felt possible. But the universe, Lena would learn, had other plans. The crisis came on a Tuesday, 6 weeks after Noah had started his job. Lena was in a board meeting when her phone buzzed with an emergency alert. Server breach. Data compromise. Potential leak of proprietary information. Within an hour, the situation had escalated from bad to catastrophic. A vulnerability in their security system had been exploited and sensitive client data was at risk. The press was already circling, stock prices were dropping, and the board was looking at Lena with expressions that ranged from concern to barely concealed blame. "We need you focused on this," her chairman said. "Full attention, whatever it takes to contain the damage and restore confidence." Lena knew what that meant. 18-hour days, round-the-clock crisis management, every resource directed at saving the company she'd built from nothing. She thought about Noah, about Lucy, about the promise she'd made to show up, to be present, to choose them. She thought about the board members watching her, waiting to see if she had what it took to be a real CEO, or if she'd gone soft. "I'll handle it," she heard herself say. The next 72 hours were a nightmare. Lena practically lived at the office, coordinating with security teams, managing public relations, personally calling every affected client. She sent Noah a text explaining the situation, promising she'd be back as soon as she could. He responded, "We understand. Do what you need to do." But she couldn't quite shake the feeling that she was failing, that she was choosing work over people, that she was becoming exactly what she'd promised not to be. On the fourth day, exhausted and running on nothing but coffee and adrenaline, Lena got a text from Noah. "Lucy's school play is tomorrow night at 7. She's been practicing for weeks. She really wants you there." Lena stared at the message, her vision blurring with tears. Lucy's play. She'd helped the little girl practice her lines, had promised she'd be in the front row, had seen the excitement in Lucy's eyes when she talked about being a tree in the school forest. She looked at her calendar. 7 p.m. tomorrow. Right in the middle of a critical meeting with investors. A meeting that would determine whether they maintained confidence in the company or pulled their funding. The choice should have been obvious. The play would be over in an hour. The investors represented hundreds of millions of dollars. Lucy would understand. She was only 6, but she'd understand. Except she wouldn't. And more importantly, Lena would know. She would know that when it came down to it, when the choice was between her two worlds, she'd chosen the same way she always had. Lena called Noah. "I can't make it," she said, hating herself. "The investor meeting, it's crucial. If I don't show up, we could lose everything." Silence on the other end. "Noah? I understand." His voice was carefully neutral. "Like I said, do what you need to do." "I'm sorry. I'll make it up to Lucy, I promise. Maybe we can—" "Lena, you don't have to explain. This is who you are. This is what you do. We knew that going in." The words were understanding, but the tone was not. Lena heard the disappointment, the resignation, the confirmation of every fear Noah had expressed about their relationship. "Tell Lucy I'm sorry," Lena whispered. "I will." The line went dead. Lena sat in her office, surrounded by the evidence of her success, and felt like she was drowning. She'd made her choice. She'd protected her company, her employees, her investors. And she'd broken her promise to a little girl who had invited her to be part of her family. The investor meeting went well. They maintained funding, restored confidence, stabilized the situation. Lena should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. She tried calling Noah after the meeting. No answer. She tried again the next morning. Nothing. She sent texts that went unread. Finally, on the third day, she showed up at the apartment. Noah answered the door looking tired and wary. "Can I come in? Lucy's at school. I came to see you." He stepped aside, letting her enter. The apartment looked the same, but something felt different, colder, more distant. "I'm sorry," Lena said. "I know I screwed up. I should have been at the play. You had work. I get it." "Do you?" Noah ran a hand through his hair. "Lena, I knew this was coming. I knew eventually you'd have to choose between your real life and slumming it with us. That's not fair. Isn't it? You have a billion-dollar company to run. You have responsibilities that matter. We're just, what, a charity project? A way to feel good about yourself?" "You know that's not true," Lena said, anger rising to match his. "I love you. I love Lucy." "Do you?" "Because love shows up. Love keeps promises. Love doesn't abandon a 6-year-old who's been practicing being a tree for 3 weeks. The words landed like physical blows. Lena felt tears streaming down her face. "You're right," she whispered. "You're absolutely right. I made the wrong choice. I reverted to my old patterns, put work first, told myself it was necessary when really I was just scared." "Scared of what?" "Of this. Of needing you so much that it terrifies me. Of loving Lucy so much that the thought of losing her makes me want to build walls again. I know how to be a CEO, Noah. I know how to make hard business decisions. But I don't know how to be someone's person. I don't know how to be a mother. And when it got hard, I retreated to what I know." Noah's expression softened slightly, but the hurt was still there. Lena, we can't be your practice run. Lucy can't be collateral damage while you figure out how to be in a relationship. I know, and I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking for another chance. One more chance to prove that I can choose differently, that I can be what you need me to be. It's not about what I need. It's about Lucy. She waited by the window for an hour, convinced you'd show up. She wore her costume around the apartment afterward, performing her part just for me, and I could see how hard she was trying not to cry. The image broke something inside Lena. She sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. I'll fix it. I'll apologize to her. I'll do whatever it takes. You can't just throw money at this, Lena. You can't buy your way out of breaking her heart. Then what do I do? Noah sat beside her, and for a moment they were just two tired people who'd found each other and were trying desperately not to lose it. I don't know, he said honestly, but I know you can't keep living in both worlds. Eventually, you're going to have to decide which one you want. Lena looked at him, this man who had changed everything, who had shown her what it meant to be loved not for what she had, but for who she was. She thought about Lucy, about purple casts and paintings, and the simple invitation that had started it all. She thought about her company, her empire, everything she'd built to prove she didn't need anyone. And she realized that Noah was right. She couldn't have both, not really, not the way she'd been trying to. Something had to give. I need to think, she said. Take all the time you need. But they both knew she was running out of time. You couldn't keep people waiting forever while you decided if they were worth the sacrifice. Eventually, you had to choose. Lena drove back to her penthouse in a fog, Noah's words echoing in her mind. Eventually, you're going to have to decide which one you want. The city passed by her windows in a blur of gray buildings and cold winter light, and she felt like she was seeing it all for the first time, or maybe the last time. Everything looked different now, sharper and more fragile, like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for her to make a choice that would change everything. She spent that night pacing her apartment, unable to sit still, unable to think clearly. Every surface reminded her of the person she'd been before Christmas Eve, controlled, focused, alone. The apartment was exactly as it had always been, perfect and pristine and utterly empty. But now she knew what warmth felt like, what belonging tasted like, and the silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was suffocating. At 2 a.m, she found herself standing in front of Lucy's painting on her refrigerator. 3 figures holding hands under a Christmas tree. A family, drawn with the absolute certainty of a child who believed the world could be that simple. We can be your people. Lena pressed her forehead against the cool steel of the refrigerator and let herself cry. Not the controlled tears she'd allowed herself over the years, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place she'd locked away 19 years ago when her family had died. She cried for her parents, for her brother, for all the years she'd spent protecting herself from pain by refusing to feel anything at all. She cried for the little girl waiting by a window, convinced that someone who'd promised to show up would actually come. She cried for Noah, who'd taken a chance on her despite every reason not to. And she cried for herself, for the woman who'd built an empire but forgotten how to build a life. When the tears finally stopped, Lena felt hollowed out but strangely clear. She walked to her window and watched the city sleep, thinking about choices and consequences and the terrifying freedom of deciding who you wanted to be. Her phone sat on the counter, dark and silent. She could call Diane, throw herself back into work, let the crisis consume her until she forgot about purple casts and gap-toothed smiles and the feeling of being needed for something other than her business acumen. She could retreat to what was safe and familiar and lonely. Or she could do something she'd never done before. She could choose differently. The sun was rising when Lena finally picked up her phone. She didn't call Diane. She called her lawyer. Lena, it's 6 a.m. Is everything all right? I need you to draw up some papers, Lena said, her voice steady despite the enormity of what she was about to do. I'm stepping down as CEO of Whitaker Technologies. The silence on the other end was deafening. I'm sorry, did you just say, I'm stepping down? I'll remain on the board, maintain my majority shares, but I want to transition operational control to someone else. Marcus has been grooming his VP of operations. She'd be perfect. I want this done quickly and cleanly. Can you make it happen? Lena, you need to think about this. This is your company. Everything you've built. I have thought about it. I've been thinking about nothing else, and I'm certain. She paused, feeling the weight and the rightness of the decision settle into her bones. I've spent 19 years building a company. Maybe it's time I tried building a life. The next few weeks were chaos. The business world reacted to her announcement with shock and speculation. Her stock took an initial hit before stabilizing when investors realized she wasn't abandoning the company entirely, just changing her role. There were meetings with the board, press conferences, transition plans, 1,000 details that required her attention. But through it all, Lena kept her evenings free. She showed up at Noah's apartment every night at 6 o'clock, ready to help with dinner or homework or whatever was needed. At first, Noah was wary. Lucy was cautious. The little girl didn't run to the door anymore when Lena knocked. She was polite but distant, protecting herself the way children do when adults have let them down. It broke Lena's heart, but she kept showing up. "I'm sorry I missed your play," Lena said one evening, sitting beside Lucy on the couch, while the little girl colored. "That was wrong of me. You deserved better." Lucy didn't look up from her picture. "It's okay. You were busy." "It's not okay, and I wasn't too busy. I made a bad choice. I chose work over you, and that hurt you, and I'm sorry. Daddy says sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. Your daddy's right, but the hard choice should have been figuring out how to keep my promise to you. Instead, I took the easy way out." Lena waited until Lucy looked at her. "I'm learning, sweetheart. I'm not very good at this yet, at being someone you can count on. But I'm trying. And I'm going to keep trying, even when I mess up, even when it's hard. Is that okay?" Lucy studied her with those two wise eyes. "Are you going to leave again when work gets busy?" "I'm not going to lie to you and say, I'll be perfect. I'm probably going to mess up sometimes, but I'm not going to leave. Not like before. I changed my job so I could be here more, because you're more important than any meeting or any deal. You and your daddy. You're the most important thing." "Really? Really?" Lucy set down her crayon and climbed into Lena's lap, tucking herself against Lena's chest with the complete trust of a child who decided to forgive. Lena wrapped her arms around the small, warm body and felt something fundamental shift inside her. This was what mattered. Not profit margins or stock prices or the approval of people who didn't really know her. This child in her arms, this chance at family, this opportunity to be someone's person. From the kitchen, she caught Noah watching them, his expression unreadable. They hadn't talked much since her announcement. He'd been giving her space, letting her work through the transition, maintaining a careful distance. But now he walked over and sat beside them on the couch. "You really did it," he said quietly. "You stepped down." "I did." "Why?" Lena looked at him over Lucy's head. "Because I was so busy climbing mountains that I forgot to look around and see what I was missing at ground level. Because a little girl invited me to Christmas and taught me that family isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. Because you told me I had to choose, and I realized that choosing you wasn't a sacrifice. It was the first honest thing I'd done in years." Noah's eyes were bright with emotion. "What if it doesn't work? What if you regret it?" "Then I'll regret it. But at least I'll regret trying instead of always wondering what if." She reached for his hand. "I love you, Noah. I love Lucy. I want to build a life with you both. Not a perfect life. I think we're all too messy for that. But a real one. One where I show up, where I keep promises, where I choose you every single day. Even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard." Noah kissed her then, soft and careful, mindful of Lucy between them. When they pulled apart, the little girl was grinning up at them. "Does this mean you're staying forever?" "If you'll have me," Lena said. "Yay!" Lucy threw her arms around both of them, nearly knocking them over, and they all laughed, tangled together on the worn couch in the small apartment that had become more home than Lena's penthouse ever was. The transition wasn't seamless. There were days when Lena's phone rang with crises that made her fingers itch to take control, to solve problems the way she'd always solved them. There were moments when she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake, if she'd given up too much, if she was qualified for this new role she'd chosen. But those moments passed, and in their place came new rhythms, new routines, new ways of being that felt foreign at first, but gradually became natural. Lena learned to make pancakes on Saturday mornings, to read bedtime stories with different voices for each character, to braid Lucy's wild hair into something resembling order. She learned that being present was harder than running a company, but infinitely more rewarding. She learned that love wasn't about grand gestures, but about small, consistent acts of care. She also learned that Noah had his own walls, his own fears, his own ways of protecting himself. There were nights when he pulled away, when the gap between their backgrounds felt insurmountable, when his pride bristled at accepting help even when he needed it. "Let me pay for Lucy's summer camp," Lena said one evening, 3 months after she'd stepped down. They were cleaning up after dinner, moving around each other in the small kitchen with practiced ease. "We can't afford it," Noah said stiffly. "She'll be fine staying with Mrs. Chen while I work." "But she wants to go. She's been talking about it for weeks, and I can easily—" "No." Noah's voice was sharp. "We've talked about this, Lena. I need to provide for my daughter." "Why? Why does it have to be just you? We're together. We're building a life. Why can't I help?" "Because if I can't take care of my own kid, what kind of father am I?" Lena set down the dish she was drying and turned to face him. "You're the kind of father who counts quarters to buy his daughter hot chocolate. You're the kind of father who works 2 jobs to keep a roof over her head. You're the kind of father who loves so fiercely that you'd rather struggle than accept help because you think that's what strength looks like." She moved closer. "But Noah, strength is also knowing when to let people in. Strength is building a partnership where we take care of each other." "It's not the same," Noah said, but his voice had lost its edge. "You have millions. You have me, and Lucy, and a life you've built with your own hands, and I have more money than I know what to do with and no one to share it with until I met you." She took his hand. "Let me share it. Not because you need rescuing, but because that's what families do. They pool resources. They support each other. They let love be bigger than pride." Noah was quiet for a long moment, his thumb rubbing circles on her palm. Finally, he nodded. "Okay. But we do it together. You pay for camp, I handle groceries and rent. We figure out what's fair." "Fair doesn't mean equal," Lena pointed out gently. "I know. But it means I'm not just taking from you. It means we're building something together." "Deal." They sealed it with a kiss, and Lena felt another wall come down between them. Summer arrived, and with it came changes. Lucy's cast came off, leaving her arm slightly weaker but healing well. She went to camp and came home every day full of stories about swimming and crafts and a boy named Tyler who ate paste. Noah excelled at his job, earning praise from supervisors and respect from his team, and Lena discovered that she didn't miss being CEO nearly as much as she'd feared. She still worked, consulting on major decisions, attending board meetings, providing strategic guidance. But her days were no longer consumed by work. She had time to take Lucy to the park, to have lunch with Noah, to sit in Mrs. Chen's apartment drinking tea and learning about her neighbor's fascinating life. She had time to be human again. One evening in late July, as they were walking home from getting ice cream, a new Friday tradition, Lucy skipped ahead of them, her cone dripping chocolate down her hand. "Be careful," Noah called. "Watch where you're going." "I am watching," Lucy insisted, seconds before tripping over a crack in the sidewalk and landing on her hands and knees. The ice cream went flying. There was a moment of shocked silence. Then Lucy's face crumpled and she started to cry. Not from pain, Lena suspected, but from the loss of her treat and the embarrassment of falling. Noah and Lena both rushed forward, but it was Lena who got there first, scooping the little girl into her arms. "Oh, sweetheart, are you okay? Let me see your hands." Lucy held out scraped palms, tears streaming down her face. "My ice cream is ruined." "We'll get you another one," Lena soothed, checking the scrapes. "Nothing serious, just superficial wounds that would heal quickly. And we'll clean these up. You're going to be just fine." "But it was chocolate chip. That was my favorite." "Then we'll get double chocolate chip this time. How does that sound?" Lucy sniffled, considering. "Can I have sprinkles too?" "You can have whatever you want." They ended up back at the ice cream shop, where Lena bought Lucy a double scoop with sprinkles while Noah got first aid supplies from the drugstore next door. They cleaned Lucy's scrapes right there on a bench, and the little girl was brave through the stinging antiseptic, only crying a little when they put on the bandages. "There," Lena said, kissing both palms. "All better." "Thanks, Mom," Lucy said casually, then went back to attacking her ice cream. Lena froze. Noah froze. Even Lucy paused mid-lick, seeming to realize what she'd said. "I mean," Lucy started, uncertainty creeping into her voice. "I mean, Lena, sorry." "Don't be sorry," Lena said, her voice catching. "Don't ever be sorry. You can call me whatever you want." "Even Mom?" Lena looked at Noah, who had tears in his eyes and was nodding, giving permission. She looked back at Lucy, at this child who'd invited her to Christmas and decided she could be family, and felt her heart expand so much it hurt. "Especially Mom," she whispered. Lucy grinned, chocolate smeared across her face. "Okay. Can we go home now, Mom? I want to show you the picture I made at camp today." Just like that, it was decided. No ceremony, no official anything, just a little girl calling her mom and a new shape to their family that felt as natural as breathing. That night, after Lucy was asleep, Noah found Lena standing in the kitchen, staring at nothing, tears streaming silently down her face. "Hey," he said gently, pulling her into his arms. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. That's what's so overwhelming." She looked up at him. "She called me Mom." "I heard. How do you feel about that?" "Terrified. Honored. Like I just made a promise I have to keep for the rest of my life." "You did," Noah said seriously. "Once a kid calls you Mom, that's it. You're stuck with us." "Good," Lena said fiercely. "I want to be stuck." Noah kissed her forehead, then her cheeks, then her lips. "Marry me," he said against her mouth. Lena pulled back, shocked. "What?" "Marry me. Let's make this official. Let's be a family for real." He laughed, slightly hysterical. "I don't have a ring. I didn't plan this. But Lena, I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to wonder if this is real or if you're going to wake up one day and realize you can do better. I want to marry you. I want Lucy to have a mom who's not just visiting, but actually hers. I want to build a life that's ours, legally and officially and forever." Lena felt like her heart was going to burst out of her chest. "Yes. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it. Yes." Noah kissed her again, deeper this time, and Lena felt the last pieces of her old life fall away. She was no longer the lonely CEO in the penthouse. She was Lucy's mom, Noah's partner, part of something bigger and messier and more beautiful than anything she could have built alone. They told Lucy the next morning. She reacted exactly as expected, shrieking with excitement, jumping on the bed, demanding to know if she could be a flower girl and if they could have a princess cake and if Coco the bear could come to the wedding. "Yes to all of it," Noah said, laughing as Lucy bounced around the room. "Even the princess cake?" "Especially the princess cake." They got married 6 weeks later, not in some elaborate venue, but in the small diner where they'd first met. Stella's 24/7 diner closed for one evening, decorated with flowers and lights, filled with the people who mattered. Mrs. Chen and her family, Noah's work colleagues, Lena's assistant Diane, and a handful of friends Lena had been rebuilding relationships with, Lucy's entire first-grade class because she'd insisted everyone she loved should be there. Lucy wore a purple dress to match her cast from earlier in the year, now just a memory, and carried a basket of flowers down the aisle between the booths. Lena wore a simple white dress that cost a fraction of what her business suits used to cost, and felt more like herself than she had in years. And Noah wore a new suit, the first he'd bought with money he'd earned at a job he was good at, his pride intact, his future secure. Stella officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this occasion. "We're gathered here today," she began, her voice warm and carrying easily through the small space, "to witness something beautiful. A family that was built not through biology or obligation, but through choice, through showing up, through keeping promises, through choosing each other every single day." Lena looked at Noah, at Lucy standing between them holding both their hands, and felt tears slip down her cheeks. "I wasn't looking for you," Lena said when it was time for vows. She and Noah had decided to speak from the heart rather than write anything formal. "I'd convinced myself I didn't need anyone. that being alone was safer than risking the pain of loss. But then a little girl invited me to Christmas, and a kind man let me into his home, and you both taught me that safety isn't found in isolation. It's found in connection, in taking the risk, in loving people, even though, especially though, it's terrifying. She looked down at Lucy. You saved me, both of you. You gave me a family when I thought I'd lost the ability to have one. And I promised to show up. I promised to keep trying. I promised to choose you every single day for the rest of my life. Noah was crying openly now. I was drowning, he said, his voice rough, trying to keep Lucy safe and fed and happy while barely treading water myself. I'd accepted that my life was going to be hard, that I'd have to do it alone, that asking for help was weakness. And then you walked into this diner and reminded me that strength is actually letting people in, that family isn't about doing it alone, it's about building something together. He squeezed Lena's hand. You saw me, the real me, counting quarters and struggling and scared, and you didn't try to fix me or save me. You just chose to stand beside me. That's what love is, and I'm so grateful I get to spend the rest of my life standing beside you. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. They exchanged simple rings, matching gold bands that Noah had saved up for, refusing Lena's offer to buy something expensive. These mean more, he'd said, because I worked for them, because they represent what we built together. And when Stella pronounced them married, Lucy let out a whoop that made everyone laugh. Noah kissed Lena while their daughter danced around them, and Lena felt the rightness of it settle into her bones. This was home. Not the penthouse with its designer furniture, but these people, this love, this choice to show up and be present and build something real. The reception was cake and dancing in a diner that smelled like coffee and possibility. Mrs. Chen gave a toast in which she cried and laughed and claimed she'd known from the first moment that these three people were meant to be a family. Diane surprised everyone with a heartfelt speech about how Lena had taught her that success without connection was meaningless, that the bravest thing their former CEO had ever done wasn't building a company, but tearing down the walls around her heart. And Lucy, when given the microphone, simply said, I'm glad I asked Lena to have Christmas with us. She's the best mom ever, even if she doesn't know how to braid hair very good yet. The room dissolved into laughter and applause. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Lena found herself standing at the exact spot where she'd sat almost a year ago, watching a father count quarters for his daughter's hot chocolate. The booth looked the same. The diner looked the same. But everything was different. Noah appeared beside her, Lucy asleep in his arms. What are you thinking about? About that night, about how close I came to not showing up. What if I'd stayed in my penthouse? What if I'd let my fear win? But you didn't. You chose to be brave. You chose us. Best decision I ever made. Lena looked at her sleeping daughter. Her daughter now. Officially and legally and in every way that mattered. Where do we go from here? Home, Noah said simply. We go home. They'd found a new apartment 3 months ago, one that was bigger than Mrs. Chen's borrowed space, but still modest by Lena's old standards. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen where they could all cook together, a living room that was already cluttered with Lucy's art projects and Noah's books, and evidence of life being lived fully. Lena had sold her penthouse, unable to imagine going back to that sterile perfection. The proceeds had gone into a trust for Lucy's education and their family's future, and Lena felt lighter for not having it hanging over her head. As they drove through the city, Noah at the wheel of their sensible used car, Lena in the passenger seat, Lucy asleep in the back, Lena watched the lights pass by and thought about how much had changed in less than a year. She'd gone from a lonely billionaire to a wife and mother, from a CEO consumed by work to a partner who'd learned to balance ambition with presence, from someone who counted success in stock prices to someone who measured it in bedtime stories and family dinners and the weight of a sleeping child in her arms. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been missteps and failures and moments when she'd reverted to old patterns. There had been arguments about money and pride and how to blend 2 very different lives. There had been times when Lena had doubted herself, had wondered if she was capable of being the mother and partner Lucy and Noah deserved. But through it all, they'd kept showing up. they'd kept choosing each other, and slowly, painfully, beautifully, they'd built something real. 1 year later, almost to the day after that first Christmas Eve meeting, Lena stood in their kitchen making breakfast while Lucy chattered about the upcoming school holiday pageant. Noah came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Good morning, Mrs. Brooks," he murmured. Lena smiled, leaning back into him. She'd kept Whitaker professionally, but had taken Noah's name in their family life, wanting Lucy to have the unity of a shared surname, wanting to signal that this was a new chapter, a new identity, a new way of being. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks." "Mom, can you help me with my costume for the pageant?" Lucy asked, not even noticing her slip. Lena was Mom now, consistently and without question. Sometimes Lucy still called her Lena, but it was more nickname than name, the way you might call someone by their middle name when you were being playful. "Of course, baby. What do you need?" "I'm a snowflake. I need sparkles and a tutu and—" The doorbell rang, interrupting Lucy's enthusiastic list. Lena glanced at Noah, confused. They weren't expecting anyone. Noah shrugged and went to answer it while Lena continued cooking. She heard his surprised greeting, then footsteps, then a familiar voice that made her freeze. "I hope I'm not intruding. I should have called, but I was in the city, and I thought—" Lena turned to see Marcus Chen standing in her kitchen, looking uncomfortable and out of place in his expensive suit. "Marcus?" She wiped her hands on a towel, genuinely shocked. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see for myself," he said, "the woman who walked away from everything for her family. Everyone said you'd lost your mind. I wanted to understand why." Lucy, fearless as ever, walked right up to him. "Who are you?" "This is Mr. Chen," Lena said. "He's a colleague of mine. Marcus, this is my daughter, Lucy." "Your daughter?" Marcus looked at Lucy, then at Noah, then at the modest kitchen with its cluttered counter and crayon drawings on the fridge. His expression was unreadable. "You really did it. You gave it all up." "I didn't give it up," Lena corrected gently. "I traded it for something better. Would you like some coffee?" They sat at the table, all four of them, because Lucy insisted on staying to hear what the fancy man had to say. And Lena watched Marcus take in their home, their life, their very ordinary domestic scene. "I thought about what you said," Marcus said finally. "On Christmas Eve, when you asked me about my daughters, how many dinners I'd missed, how many moments I'd sacrificed for work." He paused, his composure cracking slightly. "My oldest is 13 now. She barely talks to me. When I ask about her life, she gives one-word answers. And I realized I don't actually know her. I don't know what she's interested in, what makes her laugh, what she dreams about. I've been so busy building an empire that I forgot to build a relationship with my own child." "It's not too late," Lena said quietly. "It's never too late to start showing up. That's why I'm here, to ask how you did it. How you walked away from power and success and didn't regret it." Lena looked at Noah, who smiled encouragement. She looked at Lucy, who was listening with interest even if she didn't understand all the adult conversation. She looked at her life, imperfect, chaotic, full of laundry and bills and grocery shopping and all the mundane details that made up a real existence. "I did regret it," Lena admitted. "At first, there were days when I missed the rush of closing deals, the thrill of success, the feeling of being important. But then Lucy would ask me to help with homework, or Noah would cook dinner and we'd all eat together, and I'd realize that this normal, everyday life, this is what I'd been missing. This is what matters." She reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. "The empire will survive without you. Companies adapt. New leaders emerge. But your daughter? She only gets one childhood, and you only get one chance to be part of it." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I'm going home. Today. I'm going to cancel my meetings and go home and ask my daughter what she wants to do. And then I'm going to do it with her, whatever it is." "That's a good start," Lena said. After Marcus left, Noah pulled Lena into his arms. "You're changing the world," he said, "just not in the way you used to." "Is that enough?" Lena asked, voicing a fear she rarely admitted. "Is it enough to just be a mom and a wife and a consultant instead of a CEO?" "Is it enough for you?" Noah countered. Lena thought about it honestly. She thought about her old life, the power, the prestige, the constant pressure to be perfect. She thought about her new life, messy, unpredictable, full of moments that would never make headlines but felt more significant than any deal she'd ever closed. Yes, she said finally, it's more than enough. It's everything. That evening, they went to Lucy's holiday pageant. Lena sat in the front row, phone in her purse for once, completely present. Noah held her hand, his calloused fingers intertwined with hers. And when Lucy came on stage in her sparkly snowflake costume wobbling slightly on her platform shoes, Lena's heart swelled so much she thought it might burst. Lucy forgot her lines halfway through. She stood there, frozen, panic clear on her small face. Lena saw the moment she almost gave up, almost ran off the stage. But then Lucy's eyes found Lena in the audience, found Noah beside her, and something shifted. The little girl took a breath, made up her own lines, and finished her performance with more confidence than most adults possessed. The audience applauded. Lucy beamed, and Lena cried tears of pride and joy and overwhelming gratitude that she got to be here for this, that she'd made the choices that led to this moment. After the pageant, Lucy ran off the stage and launched herself at Lena. "Did you see me? Did you see me not mess up?" "I saw you," Lena said, catching her daughter and spinning her around. "You were perfect. You were so brave." "I knew you'd be here," Lucy said with absolute certainty. "You always come now." "I always come now," Lena agreed. That night, after Lucy was asleep, Lena and Noah sat on their small balcony, wrapped in blankets against the winter cold, watching the city lights. "Do you ever miss it?" Noah asked. "The old life?" "Sometimes," Lena admitted. "I miss the simplicity of it, in a weird way. When success was just numbers on a screen. When I didn't have to worry about whether I was doing enough, being enough, loving enough. But this is better. This is real. Numbers on a screen don't hug you back. They don't call you mom. They don't look at you like you hung the moon just because you showed up to a school play." She turned to face him. "Do you ever regret it? Letting me into your life?" "Everything got more complicated." "Everything got better," Noah corrected. "Before you, I was surviving. Now I'm living." Lucy has a mom who adores her. I have a partner who makes me laugh and challenges me and chooses us every single day. We have a future instead of just getting through today. How could I regret that? They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city they'd both called home but experienced so differently. Somewhere out there, in a penthouse apartment, someone else was probably standing at a window, looking out at the world and feeling alone. Lena sent out a silent wish that they'd find their own Lucy, their own Noah, their own invitation to step into the warmth and chaos of connection. "Thank you," Lena said softly. "For what?" "For letting Lucy invite me to Christmas. For not turning me away. For teaching me what love looks like." "Thank you," Noah replied, "for showing up, for staying, for choosing us." They kissed under the stars, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way and built something beautiful from the ruins of their separate loneliness. Years passed. Lucy grew from a gap-toothed 6-year-old into a confident teenager who wanted to be an artist, inspired by that first art kit Lena had given her. The small apartment was replaced by a house with a yard where they could garden together. Noah advanced in his career, eventually starting his own construction company with Lena as a silent partner. And Lena found new purpose in consulting work that allowed her to help other executives find balance, to mentor women in tech, to use her experience to make the business world a little more humane. But the best moments weren't the big ones. They were Tuesday nights doing homework at the kitchen table. They were Saturday morning pancakes with too much syrup. They were family game nights where Lucy made up rules and everyone played along. They were the 1,000 small ways they showed up for each other, kept promises, chose connection over convenience. On the 5th anniversary of that first Christmas Eve, they returned to Stella's diner. It had become a tradition. Every year, on Christmas Eve, they had dinner at the place where everything began. Stella always closed early for them, setting up their favorite booth, serving hot chocolate with extra marshmallows for Lucy. This year, Lucy was 11, on the cusp of adolescence but still young enough to believe in the magic of Christmas. She slid into the booth across from Lena and Noah, and for a moment, Lena was transported back to that first night, watching a father count quarters, a daughter radiant with hope, Two people who had no idea they were about to change her life. "What are you thinking about?" Lucy asked, reading her expression. "About how lucky I am," Lena said. "About how one invitation from a brave little girl changed everything." "I wasn't brave," Lucy protested. "I just didn't want you to be alone." "That was brave," Noah said. "Inviting a stranger to Christmas. Most people wouldn't have done that." "Most people are silly," Lucy declared with the confidence of someone who'd been taught that kindness was never wasted. "Everybody needs people." Stella brought their food, the same meal they'd shared that first night, plus extra because they could afford it now, because Noah no longer had to count quarters, because everything had changed and yet the fundamentals remained the same. They ate and laughed and told stories about the year past. Lucy talked about school and friends and the art show where her painting had won second place. Noah described a particularly difficult construction project he'd navigated successfully. And Lena shared news about a young CEO she'd been mentoring who just decided to step back and spend more time with her newborn daughter. "You're changing the world," Lucy said, echoing Noah's words from years ago. "One person at a time." "We all are," Lena corrected. "Every time we choose connection, every time we invite someone in, every time we show up when it would be easier to stay away. That's how the world changes, not through grand gestures, but through small acts of courage." As they left the diner that night, Lena paused on the sidewalk where she'd stood 5 years ago, paralyzed by loneliness and fear. The city looked the same, but she was completely different. That woman in the expensive coat, isolated in her penthouse, convinced that safety lay in solitude. She barely existed anymore. In her place stood someone braver, someone who'd learned that the greatest risk wasn't in loving and losing, but in never loving at all. Someone who'd traded an empire for a family and gained everything that mattered. Noah took her hand. Lucy walked ahead, singing off-key, her breath visible in the cold air. And Lena looked at her life, imperfect, chaotic, full of dirty dishes and homework battles and bills to pay, and felt a peace she'd never known in all her years of success. She'd spent 19 years building walls. It had taken one Christmas invitation to teach her that the real work was tearing them down. And every day since, she'd been learning how to live with her heart open, how to show up, how to be someone's person. The richest life, she'd discovered, wasn't built in boardrooms or measured in stock prices. It was built at kitchen tables and school plays and ordinary Tuesday nights. It was built through small promises kept, through choosing the same people over and over, through the brave and beautiful work of letting yourself be known. Lena Brooks, had learned the most important lesson of all. You could have everything money could buy and still have nothing. Or you could have very little and have everything that mattered. She'd chosen the latter. And it had cost her an empire. It had given her a life. And that, she knew with absolute certainty, was a trade she would make 1,000 times over. Every single time she would choose the apartment over the penthouse, the counting quarters over the unlimited accounts, the messy reality of family over the sterile perfection of success. Because at the end of the day, when the work was done and the lights went out and the city went to sleep, what mattered wasn't what you'd built or achieved or accumulated. What mattered was who was there, who you'd let in, who you'd chosen. And Lena had chosen well. She'd chosen love. She'd chosen family. She'd chosen, against all her instincts and fears and years of self-protection, to be vulnerable, to need people, to let herself be needed in return. The CEO had spent Christmas alone, but the woman, the mother, the wife, the partner, she would never be alone again, and that was the happiest ending of all.